All right.
Okay, we're ready to get started.
Good morning, everybody. First apologies that I can't be there in person. I ended up in a meeting in California this week, so I've got wet and cold, but I think it's a little different than yours. So hopefully everybody made it safely. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and Tammy, if you would maybe a couple of quick things. I may ask Tammy to introduce herself quick to the whole group and give us a little bit of a background as we welcome you in this new role. We're looking forward to having you.
Well, thank you, Chair Gilbertson. My name is Tammy Hickey, and I am the new director of the SWIB board, and I look forward to working with all of you. I previously came from Great Falls College, MSU, as well as Great Falls Public Schools. I simultaneously ran two programs, the We Have Adult Ed Title II program, as well as the Workforce Development program there at the college. So I did try to retire, but here I am again. And actually workforce development is my passion. So I'm just so excited to work with all of you. So thank you for having me. We actually have a lot of new individuals. And so I thought we'd go around and do introductions as a whole, and I will take roll call and a quorum during that time. Is that all right with you?
Perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Paul, let's start with you and we'll just go around.
So I'm Paul Hufflock, Director of Corporate Strategy for MD Resources Group. We're a combination gas electric utility in Eastern Montana. We've got Union State Pipeline Company that serves Eastern Montana as well. Formerly Knife River Construction and Everest were part of our company. They now spun off and they're on their own. But I've had the pleasure to serve on the SWIB board for several terms. I notice as I have increasing gray hair, I think I am the longest on this board remaining, but it's a great board. Welcome to all the new people. I think you'll really enjoy it. Very great.
I'm Patty Fleming. I'm the director of the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center. We have offices throughout the state and headquartered at MSU College of Engineering. And our job is to help all the 5,500 manufacturers in the state of Montana.
Jason Yeager, I serve as the Executive Director of the Montana Photonics and Quantum Lights. I also have the privilege of serving on the Gallatin College Advisory Board, the Headwaters Tech Hub Governing Board with Joe, and the Montana Chamber Foundation. As an industry association, we have nearly 80 members across Montana and the US, and workforce what is and continues to be a #1 concern for our membership.
Hi, everyone. Sarah Swanson. I have the honor of serving as the commissioner for Montana's Department of Labor and Industry, to which the State Workforce Board is attached. You all comprise the advisory committee and council to both the governor and myself on statewide workforce strategies, recommended directly from industry, from our state agency partners, and from organized labor. Very, very important work that we've all embarked on in getting us to the point of a 406 jobs executive order. We're in the middle. The middle point was actually last week. We're in the middle of our statewide tour. So socializing with citizens around Montana, 406 jobs, and the important work in front of us. And I'm really excited to hear your recommendations today for what the 1-year implementation plan for this incredible framework that you developed for us will be. Also within my office are a number of incredible folks that you'll get to meet on our team here today. We are 644 employees strong in the Department of Labor, so I'm thrilled that you'll get to meet a number of them today. And then I also have the opportunity to appoint a certain number of staffers in my office as commissioner. You've gotten to meet Tammy Hickey. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am and how hard I chased her around the city of Great Falls to get her to say yes to joining us as the new executive director. I do want to assure you that Jennifer Owen, who's led us this far, has not departed. She's taken on a bigger and stronger role within my office. She's still an appointee. She runs our public policy, public affairs, and federal relations. As you can imagine, things at the federal level are moving so quickly, and I need help. And Jennifer's skill set is uniquely attuned to that. She will still be at Tammy's right hand every step of the way. In fact, she'll be joining us later today as we start walking through the 1-year implementation plan planning. But thanks for coming and welcome to all our new members. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm Eric Heimbaugh, and I'm new to the board. I'm a commissioner in Gaston County. Carrie Seekins Crow, represent House District 39 in Billings. I also sit as vice chair of business and labor. And it's been so long since I've been here that I'm just glad to full receive while I was in session. So thank you very much.
I'm Craig Berger, I'm the Deputy Superintendent at the Office of Public Instruction. I'm sitting here for Susie Edlin, who could not be here today.
Dwight Rose, training director for the laborers out of Helena. Let's see, coming up in December will mark 1 year anniversary. This is my first day, first appointment to the school board, so I appreciate you guys having me and look forward to working with you guys.
David Smith, I'm the Executive Director of the Montana Contractors Association. My members build the roads, bridges, and hospitals in your communities. Been there about 7 years. I think I've been on this board 3 or 4 so far. Get it right sooner or later. And I'm thankful for heated seats and satellite radio.
I'm Dwayne Iverson, I'm from Shelby. I'm trying to retire as a CPA, but I'm also the PR for a state that's creating a foundation that's gonna support education in our area. And it's a huge endeavor we're going on, so.
I'm Sarah Schreiner. I own Sunshine Academy. We have 3 childcare centers and 2 after-school programs. And I like to say we're the workforce behind the workforce.
Morning, everybody. Joe Teal. I'm Deputy Commissioner for Academic Research Student Affairs for the Montana University System. So I work with all the colleges and universities in the state.
Good afternoon, Heather O'Hara. I'm Vice President with the Montana Hospital Association. We're a group that advocates of our hospitals throughout the state of Montana. All of our hospitals are actually members. In addition to hospitals, we also have long-term care, assisted living, home health, and hospice. So I'm proud to say that we really represent the continuum of care across the state of Montana. So you might be building bridges and roads. We're taking care of you guys. So, yes.
Hi there, I'm Chanda Hermanson. I'm the administrator for Disability Employment and Transitions Programs at Department of Public Health and Human Services. We have a variety of programs in our division, but I also have the vocational rehabilitation program, which is Title IV of WIOA. So I'm the director of that. We currently are serving 4,000 job seekers with disabilities across the state, and we have 3,000 high school students with disabilities that we're serving through our transitions programming.
And I think we'll switch to the board members online then. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I think the one under legislator is Senator Nolan.
Okay.
It's just not identified by name.
Can you hear me?
We can
All
now,
right.
yes.
This is Senator Mark Nolan from the Greater Flathead Valley, represented Senate District number 6. Had the privilege now, this is going on my 3rd year to serve on this board. If I might say, it's probably the best board we have in the state. We get to do a lot of good things. We're led by a great team, and I feel honored and privileged to serve here. I've had the privilege of serving 4 years or 8 years in the House, termed out there, chaired Business and Labor for 3 sessions, chaired Business and Labor and Economic Affairs in the Senate this last session, and looking forward to working with all of you.
I'm Aaron Kellum. I co-own Felco Industries in Missoula, Montana. I'm new to the board, so looking forward to getting involved and however I can help.
My name is John Williams. I'm the mayor of the city of Colstrip. I became mayor when the city incorporated in 1999. I set out for 4 years, currently in I think probably my 5th term, but prior to my being mayor, I worked for the Montana Power Company. Some of you folks may remember Montana Power. I worked for Montana Power for 35 years and did a number of jobs with the Montana Power Company, and I was also a member of the IBEW Local 44. Glad to be a part of the group. I apologize for not being there. We got a lot of stuff going on in Colstrip, and it was necessary for me to be here today, so thank you.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Jim Wanacott. Currently I'm the business manager for the Iron Workers Local 732 in Montana. Been on this board for 3 years, and as Senator Nolan said, it's one of the better boards that I've sat on. So thank you.
I can go next. I'm Bo Brunsma. I'm the Career Outreach Director for Billings Public Schools. This is my 3rd year on the board. I do career outreach, so I'm kind of where education and workforce and career development intersect. And so, yeah, sorry I couldn't be here. We're onboarding a new person today, someone who's going to focus on middle school career awareness. So like a good reason, I think, as far as workforce development, starting that pipeline earlier, but that's why I couldn't be there in person today, here in person, but glad I could join via Zoom.
Any other board members online? If not, I guess I'll wrap up. I'm Adam Gilbertson, the current chair of the board and Senior Vice President at RDO Equipment Company. Been with the organization 22 years and really have enjoyed my time on the board as well. I think I'm in my 4th year along with David and Bo. I think we all came on together. So also wanted to make one, I know that we sent a notice out to the board members, but want to welcome Heather O'Hara to the role of vice chair with the board. Without missing a beat, she's going to get a little chance to take the helm this afternoon, as I have to leave a little early this afternoon for a meeting here. So Heather, thank you for your service, and really do appreciate having you in this leadership role with us. Tammy, I think we have a quorum. I just wanted to confirm that.
We absolutely do.
Perfect.
And Tony with Commerce is on now. I'm sorry, Tony with Commerce just came on. Oh, we have another introduction. Tony with Commerce. is also-
Yes. Hi, everyone. Sorry, Adam. I couldn't find my mute button earlier. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry that I couldn't be with you today in person. I had some last minute trouble and wasn't able to make it to Lewistown, but I'm Tony Brockman. I'm the business attraction community liaison at the Montana Department of Commerce. I've been on the board, I think, 1.5 years now, and look forward to participating with you remotely.
Perfect.
Great, thank you. And with that, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying, oh, actually, hold on. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Do we need to approve both sets of minutes here or just the July minutes?
Yeah, we need to approve both, because last time the April ones were not approved.
Okay, perfect. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the April 4th board meeting minutes. Is there a second? Okay, is there a second?
Seconded.
Is there any discussion on those minutes? If anyone had a chance to review. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries and those minutes are approved. I will now entertain a motion to approve the July 15th board minutes.
So.
And second?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on the July 15th meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign. Motion carries and we have minutes approved. At this point in time, we will open our first public comment session. Is there anyone either online or in the room that would like an opportunity to comment? Seeing none, we will have a second public comment session at the end of the meeting, so there's an opportunity again. With that, I will turn it over to Chanda for an update on the VOC rehab program changes.
Great, thanks. First, I want to acknowledge that October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, so it's our month to acknowledge the work we're up to, and I appreciate all the partnerships that some of you have created with us to make sure that we can meet our mission. But it is a fun month in our world to highlight the work that we're up to in a different way. So the third week last year was our first rollout of creating the third week of October to be Disability Mentoring Week in Montana. And so this is our second year. Last year, we did 165 work-based learning experiences during that week for our high school students with disabilities. While we do that work every day, it was really fun to just put energy into it, given the campaign that goes on with this month. And so we're doing the same thing this month. Right now, we're in the middle of matchmaking our students with businesses that have expressed interest, and really excited for that. It's just a fun way to highlight things we're up to. One thing, another important thing that's going on here in the state with vocational rehabilitation since I've last shared with you is we've had to implement what's called an order of selection. When our program doesn't have the financial resources to serve everybody that's applying for services, we only have one way to control our budget, and that is to go into order of selection, which in essence is creating a waiting list for services. So that happened in July. When somebody applies for our program, we get their medical records and do some observations, and our counseling staff determines what level their disability is. So level 1 is somebody with the most significant disabilities, level 2 is somebody with significant disabilities, and level 3 is somebody with just a disability. So right now we have categories 2 and 3 closed. We're only serving people with the most significant disabilities. Everybody that was in an employment plan before that happened though continues. Once you're in, you're in. So it only is impacting people currently applying for services. Right now, we have 377 people waiting for services. And it does not impact pre-employment transition services. Those are our services to students in high school. So all those students will continue with that unless they decide to apply for VOC rehab, which is the larger continuum of services. So that's what's going on there. First question people are asking me is, well, when do you think you'll get off order selection? And I can't tell you right now, with just everything going on at the national level and inflation, all kinds of things that impact this. I can't tell you that right now. I can tell you though that since 2021, the applications for the program have increased threefold. So it's been an interesting dynamic to observe what's going on. And you can really see that around COVID is when applications really started to increase. So that's what's going on there. We're monitoring it daily, of course, and we'll invite people in as we're able to. We have also started an employment first working group. And the Harkin Institute through Drake University is facilitating that. That's a working group from people from DPHHS, Department of Labor, advocacy groups, provider agencies, OPI, and clients and their families to develop a guide to direct agencies to adopt a formal policy that will dedicate all public dollars for serving people with disabilities to competitive and integrated employment rather than any segregated sheltered options in the community. So we're convening through May, at which point we hope to have a plan in place that will guide the work that we're up to there. So it's a long process that we're starting, but it will impact people that are currently in your communities, such as core enterprises and Billings or opportunity resources in Missoula. And we're working directly with those providers that are on the group so we can come up with a plan so those folks that are in those segregated settings can actually work in the community and earn prevailing wages. Also, another thing we're up to that's exciting, this past session, we got 2 new FTE to develop 2 new counseling positions specifically to implement individualized placement and support services for people with complex mental illness. And that's an evidence-based supported employment model that we just haven't had capacity to build in Montana. So we have 2 new counselors, one in Billings and one in Great Falls, that'll have that behavioral health specialty and are working with those local mental health centers to implement this model. The voc rehab counselor becomes a part of the client's treatment plan and is really embedded in the mental health system, but constantly talking about employment, and it really requires a rapid engagement in the employment setting. So we're really excited about that. Just now recruiting, but we got great applicants and excited to see what that will do. I think we've done a little bit of work in that space at Yellowstone Boys and Girls Ranch, but this just is gonna give us more opportunity to serve the adult population that we haven't been able to. And then also, I just wanted to update you guys too, that one of our strategic goals heading into the year with the department is to increase opportunities for our participants in apprenticeships and on-the-job training. So we're right now reworking our policies and processes, especially around the on-the-job training. It's intimidating process to our staff. So really sitting down with them to figure out how we can make it work, because it's such a great opportunity for our participants. It's just underutilized because it's overwhelming to staff. And then really connecting with our partners at Department of Labor and Apprenticeship to learn how our clients can access those and how to partner better to make sure they're supported. So, yeah. Any questions?
Chanda, I have a question on the people awaiting services. Is the number 377, is that a really high mark, or is that, what does that look like historically?
The only context I have is we had all categories closed about 9 years ago because of overspending, and that's not the case right now. So that waiting list at the time was a couple of thousand people.
Okay.
And it was an overspending situation. This situation is just trying to get ahead of overspending and managing within our resources. So I don't really have a comparison. I can tell you 377 people have been put on the wait list in 2 months though. So that
Okay,
that was more than I anticipated.
okay, thank you.
Shannon, I think I might be on a similar wavelength as Adam. My question is, the increasing demand for services, would you attribute that to result in just better communications, more awareness of the program, or are you seeing just the raw numbers of people that qualify for housing?
I think both. I think there's more awareness, and I do think just culturally right now, the way people are talking about mental health and behavioral health is changing the way people are seeking services, especially with our younger generation. They're talking about their behavioral health as part of their natural daily conversations, and they're so aware, whereas my generation, we weren't talking about our mental health awareness in our early 20s. So I think it's multifaceted. I will say too, for those 377 people on the waiting list, we are partnering really closely at the local level with our workforce partners. So they're going unserved by voc rehab, but we're partnering with the local job service staff and adult education staff to make sure they're supported one way or another.
So I mean, I don't want to infer this to your answer, but would it be true to say that some of the growth you're seeing is in that mental health side?
Yes.
Okay, which is interesting because you're seeing a rise in just those that apply, but what's the level of people that aren't applying that's
Right.
affecting workforce?
Exactly. And we have implemented, we've become a recovery friendly workplace, and are now training the trainers, able to help Montana's workforce and businesses become recovery friendly, seeing that, substance use is impacting all of our workforce systems, especially in some of like construction and there's 4 times the likelihood to have substance use. And it might not be your employee, but it could be a family member. So just learning how to support your employees through that. That's a really popular program that speaks to that landscape.
What kind of careers or jobs do you see, or are you able to place your clients in?
Oh, all across the board. I'm like trying to think of my last quarter dashboard, we had an engineer, 2 nurses. We go from the top paying down, so engineer, 2 nurses, a handful of social workers, a couple teachers, a lot of retail and customer service too. So it really is reflective of the current workforce needs.
Shanda, what's a good way for employers that have opportunities for disabled folks to engage directly with you? I know our chairman, Adam, for example, and another contractor, Knife River, have about $1.5 million on the ground for a pilot project for remote enabled machines outside of Bozeman. But they're having a heck of a time finding disabled individuals to put into this employment opportunity. How can employers best engage with your office to connect the workers you serve with their opportunities?
We'll just reach out. I know, Adam's opportunity and then our River, we communicated heavily about that and did a big recruitment across our caseloads. That was tricky. I do understand that one person has been hired. I don't know. Is that correct, Adam? That's my understanding. It took a long time to get there. It was hard. It is. That was a very unique opportunity and it was hard to find the right person and relocating to Bozeman, it was really hard.
Yeah.
So
What's the best way to engage?
the best way to engage, yeah, just call me and we'll figure it out. Yep.
Is there a way structurally, I mean, we obviously were focused on disabled vets, which creates some privacy issues from our direction towards them. But is there a way in the system that a disabled veteran could make a decision to say, I am interested in opportunities? Can you, and I'm now public about it. Is there a way to get to a better structure? Because right now we're in industry, I can say I've got an opportunity, but I can't talk to them because of privacy, right? Or at least identify a group who would be good candidates in that pool. It just seems like the system is protecting something. I mean, we're now protecting them from a career opportunity, which doesn't seem like it's really what it was intended to do around medical privacy.
So for Voc Rehab, we're not HIPAA, we're HIPAA hybrid. We're only HIPAA because we're in the Department of Public Health, but we have our own privacy rules. So when somebody applies, part of that, it says that we're free to talk about them to potential employers. So I'm curious if you ran that in the VA system or in the state system or both.
Yeah, I think it felt like we were blind in the process until a single individual surfaced. And maybe that's how it needs to be. I don't know. It just was very limiting, which is not normally how, we would source candidates on a broad basis. And I mean, it really slowed the process down. And you're right, it was a very specific location. So, there were certainly some challenges that were tied to it, but.
Yeah, I can look into that and make sure that we understand what we're able to do. I'm not sure what the VA boundaries might be there though. Thank you for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for Chanda? Thank you for the update.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. We'll move on to Workforce Services Programs and Crystal.
I don't know if I'll need this, but is this helpful?
It's not working.
Okay. I'm allowed now, you guys. Not all of you know that though. I'm Crystal Armstrong. For those of you I haven't met, I'm the administrator of the Workforce Services Division at the Department of Labor and Industry, serving under Commissioner Swanson. I'm here with a few members of our team today online and in the back of the room to give you a couple updates. I'm gonna sneak in just a couple items here too that aren't on your agenda, just because I wanted to share them with you all, since you do oversee WIOA. First of all, though, the Workforce Services Division, for those of you who aren't familiar, includes 3 different bureaus and an office. We have the 18 job service offices across the state in our job service bureau. We have the Data and Operations Bureau, which is our economist team, the BLS folks, Bureau of Labor Statistics. We have programs and monitoring teams and a technical and training team. They're headed up by Chris Bradley in the back of the room there. And then we have our Business and Education Engagement Bureau, which includes a registered apprenticeship, jobs for Montana graduates, our career developer team. I'm drawing a blank. Who am I missing on the new team?
JMG and Friendship.
Oh, the Business Engagement team. There we go. And then we have the Office of Reentry, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. So, so these teams rely on your expertise, and we will seek a lot of your input. I'm sort of your like unofficial lovable mascot in the back, so we appreciate your input. It really does help guide the work that our teams do. So first off, thank you for that. I do want to share out that this quarter, we had a new reporting metric for WIOA. And that required us to report together, from Folk Rehab, which is Title IV, from Title I, II, and III at the Department of Labor, but the Title II data did come from OPI's previous year. We were able to successfully execute that merging of data and reporting. We don't have any metric benchmarks for that yet for you, but we were able to successfully pull that off in a pretty short time. And I know that some of our other state friends had challenges, so I just want to thank the other partners who helped us do that, to get all that done for you all. I will start with the actual updates here by sharing out about Title II a little bit. We have received the 2025 funding. Our partners from the Office of Public Instruction have done a great job in setting us up for success in terms of assuming that program. Jackie, are you on here? Can you turn your camera on and wave if you are? All right.
Yes. Good morning.
Jackie Roble is our Title II Adult Education Director. She's done a great job of getting our team up to speed and getting everything in place. We do have contracts that are being finalized right now for the current year. And then next year, we will be up to rebid those. Right now, the current providers are working on their periods, their performance plans, and the scopes of work, and then we should be able to finalize those. Jackie, is there anything else you would like to add?
Nope, I think we're doing a great job of trying to merge the 2 agencies together, and I'm super excited. Later on this week will be the first time all the WIOA AE programs will get to see each other, and I'll get to hear firsthand how they're doing and continuing all their great work across the state.
Thank you. I can pause for questions about Title II if there are any. Okay, I'll jump to Office of Reentry. So in the room with us is Representative Seekins Crow, who this last session passed House Bill 718, which established the Office of Reentry. With that, Department of Labor was charged with being sort of the convener of all of the partners in this space. We have so far hired 1 individual, we'll be hiring 2 more, but I would like to introduce Robin Gard, who is the office supervisor for the Office of Reentry. He and Representative Seekins Crow had some really good conversations already, I'm told. And Robin is going out right now and kind of getting a lay of the land for us. Robin, do you want to come up and share just a little bit about what you've done before?
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here today. First SWID meeting. I've worked for the state previously from 2010 to 2016 in Kalispell. So the SWID was always kind of in the periphery. I'm very happy to be here today. So I started September 2nd. Since that time, I've been attempting to get data, because if we don't know where we've been, we're not gonna be able to tell really where we're gonna go and how to get there. So we're working on getting reports right now to really get a good feel as to how many folks that we're seeing within, this population. So that's been at the forefront. Started holding regular meetings with the Department of Labor and Industry staff. Commissioner Swanson mentioned we have 18 offices across the state. And so I've been quietly meeting with all of the offices to the best of my ability. I'm down about 4 or 5 right now. We'll continue to do that just to find out what challenges that they're facing as we are attempting to serve this population. And then start to build some interventions from there and put some systems in place. So I'm from Montana, so happy to be back. Spent 9 years over in Washington State doing workforce development over there as well, working with Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and so happy to be here. Anybody have any questions for me? Yes.
I have a question. I just want to say thank you. Welcome aboard. I also, one thing that was really important to get this legislation passed, is this okay for me to interject right now about this, since we're talking about this, was, one, Commissioner Swanson and also Joe Teal in this room, your unbelievable support, guidance, advice, willingness to work together. I want you to know every department gave me a 0 fiscal note. That was huge. And the reason why they did that is because, as DOC said, we should already be doing this. So as we go forward, I'm gonna ask for your partnership in this. I'm just creating the chaos and dumping it on Robin. So, so I'm very thankful that he can do all of that. But as we go forward, I'm asking for your partnerships, and that's exactly what I did in both the House and the Senate. This piece of legislation here went through the House, the Senate, Finance and Claims, Appropriations, back again through every committee, 100%. But, and that can be kind of tough, you know, especially in the how political things are. But one thing that I really stressed was that we have to be a team, cast that vision. And that's what I'm asking for us here too. Help us cast this vision as to what this is gonna look like, because it's still very complicated. We're only one step in, and I've been told over and over again, reentry will not work. I don't believe that. And right now, we're not sure what is going to work, but we know what doesn't work. So, but I believe with the collaboration, with the teams, with this understanding what each entity is doing, and then as tying these together and connecting, we are gonna get it to work. So in the meantime, I didn't just dump it onto the Department of Labor. I could have, because I know that I'm going to, because the first thing will happen for it to not to work is to forget about it, like just dump it in and then forget about it. But I realized that what we have to do at this point, and I'm gonna continue to depend on my colleagues here at the SWIB board, of bringing ideas to me or to Robert or both. But what we have to do is figure out how to get this baked into our budget, get it baked into our vision as a state, that this is something that becomes very important to us as we go forward. And the other departments have been wonderful too in working in this direction. So that's what I'm doing right now, kind of in a long way around. I just want to give you a little bit of the history of how it went through a legislative process, but is casting that vision and asking for your help as we go forward. And you get these ideas or something kind of connects, let us know so that we can continue to make these connections. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Sure. And I mean, to Representative Seekins Crow's point, I'm really glad that you're starting with data, because I do think this is an area of huge opportunity and need, and an area we all should be working in. But being able to characterize that opportunity well is going to be important. And I'm just wondering, your early work, what data do you have? What data do you wish you had? How can we help?
That's a great question. Any other questions? We have, with the Department of Labor, we just moved from Montana Works into EmployOT. And so, trying to get the data pieces in place. So I'm working, with some folks on that right now. I've been looking at, data dashboards from Department of Corrections. So that's very helpful, to see what our rates for recidivism is. I know that they're moving from 3-year to 5-year measurements, and so we're gonna see how that works as well. I don't know what I don't know yet, Joe, and so just trying to piece together what I think is gonna be important. I'll have more conversations, I know, with Representative Seaton Crow about what's important, right? And Commissioner Swanson about what's important, and Crystal, and the job service offices as well. I've already been in connection with Megan Coy from Department of Corrections. Made some connections there as well, and so there's a lot right now.
And we're planning another statewide tour. So we go to, different, not just towns, but also those locations that have either the prisons or the colleges and or the pre-releases. And it's amazing because people just come to the table. And so I'm gonna be asking for your help. In fact, we've been up in Shelby too, up there as well. Just who comes to the table, and they come and having all of those kind of conversations. We're gonna continue that. We've already got permission from the commissioner to do that, so, but I covet your help as well in this, and I know what Robin's at right now, because you don't know what you don't know yet. So help us fill in what we don't know is I know I'm still begging for it. And I know that he's probably like, I wish I wouldn't given her my phone number. 'Cause I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. So it's wonderful, and thank you, and welcome.
Absolutely, thank you for that. Yes, I will look forward to going and doing a roadshow, around. Anything comes to mind, I am more than happy to have a conversation. I'm very open, I'm very collaborative, and really excited to see what we're gonna be doing.
I have one more comment.
Yeah.
Adam, this is Senator Nolan.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just some more information out there. So when I'm talking to folks about getting people back into the workforce, which is because we're hurting on the workforce, and they are saying, well, we can't have anybody that's ever had a record. We can't have anybody that ever had a felony. We can't have anybody, and they shut it down. So when we, like what Representative Seekins Crow is really working really hard to help educate and enlighten folks, if we all step up and say, this is a potential, because when I say, well, if they haven't stolen anything, maybe they had whatever the issue is, we can say a battered family member or something, we got out of hand, and then, yeah, they got in trouble. If people can't be forgiven and repent and move on, well, we're as a society just, we're failing them as well, because they had a bad situation. We need to help them. So I just want you to know that is happening, and a lot of us are talking about it. It hasn't gone very well yet, but I see great hope. But I think that we need to be vocal and be informative.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things is that I realized when I presented this legislation is that, you always hear you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, sometimes you can't even lead the horse to water. What we're responsible here for is the water, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to provide, because there are opportunities. And part of that, though, is also the education and reaching out through the Department of Commerce. Tony, you and I have had many conversations about this already, and DOC is very interested in helping us. And, we were talking about what we'd like to see on our wish list. One of them is training. And it's not just for those folks helping people find jobs, but it's also for those folks who are hiring and the employees. Because one of the problem is somebody could be willing to hire, but what does it look like with the employees as well? Are they willing to work? Now, it's very interesting because my son has his own company and he's just hiring. And so he is already starting to hire some folks who are justice involved. And it's very interesting because he's very interested in it, but there are some barriers there, transportation or, different things like that. But those are the experiments that we're gonna have to go through. Those are the barriers that we're gonna have to find as we're working through, also because that has to do with their probation officers too. What does that look like? What does that look like with the judges and the conditions that they put on folks as well? Is it just this blanket condition list, or is it something that can be, flexible depending on the person? And we start working with these entities as we go through. So these are all things, and thank you very much, Senator Nolan, for bringing that up. because I did have a company who had hired somebody, but the 3 employees wouldn't wanna do that. And they always, you hear, oh, I don't wanna hire a felon. I'm like, well, the only way you get the ticket to prison system is through a felony. It's not a misdemeanor. But that also has to do with us. Education, like at Town Pump, we always joke about Town Pump, but Town Pump is the employer that has a Town Pump everywhere. Right? But how do we actually work with Town Pump, and they are interested in doing this in a way that's, it's not necessarily an apprentice, but maybe a pre-apprenticeship that's actually focused on re-entry. So that there are certain steps and specifics, not just here, start work today, but you know, the steps to gaining meaningful employment at that point, right? Or different career ladder even within their company. So you're absolutely right, Mark, and we've got a lot of work to do. Thank you, Robin, for stepping up to the plate.
Quick question for Robin or Representative Seaton's girl. I know we're just getting started. I agree with Joe completely. Without data, you don't know where you're at. Hard to figure out the path. But what does success look like in 3 to 5 years for this effort? If you had to concatenate it into 1 or 2 sentences, what is success for this program?
That's a very hard thing, and I appreciate that question, because one, we did redefine what recidivism looks like, and we don't have the data on that yet. Also within the, tell me what the name of the new Department of Labor, what's that called? Not Town of Works, what? Employee MT, I can't, you think I remember that. But, you know, actually having that data there that says, okay, this is a person that has been in the justice system, right? So there's things in there that we have to do. So we don't really know what recidivism looks like right now. I would suggest to you that we actually had closer to a 60% recidivism rate, but we redefined it because before you did not define recidivism for folks who were not within the DOC. Now you could have somebody that went to pre-release, in and out of pre-release, they were never part of the DOC system, but yet they were still a pain in the community systems, right? But now those numbers are gonna start being captured. And so I would say success looks like that our recidivism rate goes down, but that's gonna be difficult. I think another form of success would be that all of us are working together on this. We cast a vision for it, and we also kind of put together a plan for what the state, it looks like within the state. But then our numbers actually do start, as we start to capture this data, that our numbers start to show that this has success. So we are gonna have to define that. Thank you very much for bringing that up, but I'm so glad that there are people in this room who are smarter than I am, like Crystal and Sarah and Joe, who can help us do that and figure out what that looks like.
People are going to work. I think that's gonna be a great success.
I think the definition of success is gonna be that the employees of that employer accept the person too. We so make as soft a landing as possible, so I'd love to work with you on that component of it, because I think that as I've had conversations with contractors about this, they're like, oh, yeah, but you know, contractors are usually very nice, friendly people. But sometimes they're not. And so I want to make sure that when this person lands, they're 100% set up for success. So I'd be happy to conversations with you about that. Developing any kind of curriculum or blue book for.
Yeah, and I think just to tie into what everybody said, success is gonna look different, right, for everybody in this room. And the more of those boxes that we can check, the better off we're all gonna be.
But we do have accountability. I mean, the way that we set up this bill, and Sarah can maybe define it a little bit better, we have accountability back to the legislature as well. And we'll be reporting back to them. And of course, you know, this has become like most favored nation status. A lot of different departments and sections are taking responsibility for it, which is great if we can keep it corralled where it needs to go.
This was a labor of love in the legislature. Those of you who roam the hallways with us know how much fun this was. The first ask was a robust general fund ask. General fund is income tax dollars in Montana, and our legislative friends treat them like gold. They're harder to earn. So we worked very closely with Representative Seekins-Crow on an alternate path where we're self-funding this initial cohort of this program within the Department of Labor through our state special revenue fund. So no general fund ask was needed. But really the combining of forces, right? Working so closely with OG and Commerce and the Department of Corrections and DPHHS was so important to have a single clearinghouse. Again, it's a lot of the information that you all recommended to us in our exploratory sessions for 406 jobs of that no wrong door, that one place where an employer walks in and says, I'm here to help, who do I hire, what do I need to know? We need a system that's responsive to that. We cannot continue to expect employees or employers to know which building to walk into and which door to knock on in Helena. That's too complex. So I think we're really off to a good start. As far as the reporting, Representative Seekins Crow is right. We ended up playing what I lovingly can only refer to as whack-a-mole all session because everyone was so excited. Every interim committee wanted a regular report in different form and fashion of this work every single meeting. So we got them all to narrow down on one agreed report through section A, which is our finance subcommittee, that we are happy to share with anyone and everyone who wants it, but we're making one report, not multiple. And we're doing it in that way, but we are seeing lots of interest around this. You know, section A is where we report, but we already have some requests from section E, which is where our friends at OCHI and OPI report to, asking the same questions. Section B that oversees our DPHHS friends has scheduled a lengthy deep dive into this, as has section D, which is the section of the budget overseeing corrections. So I think whack-a-mole continues, but we're all working really hard on agencies to have a common message and plan. And excited to see how that moves forward, but we're off to the races. Everybody's coordinating as well as we can in Brave New World. But I will leave you with the framework you all developed for us in 406 jobs is the answer, right? The zero in 406 jobs, the zero barriers focused on prepared employees and ready employers is the meat of this work. So what you all developed and what the governor was kind enough to trust us and sign in this executive order is the answer. Now we've got to put the meat on the bone as we work through the implementation plan.
All right, well, just to wrap up, thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
To the data question as well, to kind of button that up. There are some things that we know that we're not gonna know right away. But there is some work that we can do in the meantime. And so some of the first things, in addition to the stakeholder engagement that Robin's engaged in right now and will continue to engage in, with Representative Seekins Crow and our partners across the state, is some work that we can do with our partners. So there's some really interesting things happening with reentry across the state. There are little pockets, and there are a few individuals who are doing really neat things. We're looking to make sure that we can standardize that across the state so that that's not dependent on just this one person who has this one passion. Robin's working on our intake process and our referral process from the Department of Corrections to the Department of Labor, so that whenever someone leaves the facility, they are leaving with a connection to that workforce person, whether that's someone in a local job service office, whether it's a program that they're already enrolled in, whether it's a pre-apprenticeship or they've already done some work for an apprenticeship. He's making sure that that's in place. There's also some really interesting things happening across the nation, and so we're looking at opportunities to pilot some things. The representative has shared some really interesting things with us, and we've seen things at some of our workforce conferences as well. And so we're exploring those things too. So even though we may not have data right away, we've got some opportunities to try some things and see what will be scalable. And just to wrap up, I think I would mention just as an example of one thing that is happening in Kalispell with the new pre-release center. We will actually have a job service staff person in that pre-release facility full-time, so that everyone there gets true workforce service. It's not something that is an afterthought for someone who's working on other things. It is a dedicated staff person whose job is to help them connect to not just a job on the outside, but a career on the outside where they can make a livable wage and keep our communities safe. All right. Any questions there? I can jump to our next. All right, I'm gonna introduce Chris Bradley, who is our Data and Operations Bureau Chief. Chris is gonna talk about the ETPL, and I will let him explain what the ETPL is as well.
For those of you that have joined us on any of our road shows today, we have a new trend with the Department of Labor. If we say an acronym, you don't know what it means, we encourage you to boo us. That's going over shockingly well in the road show. Free to adopt that behavior here. If we say an acronym you don't know, feel free to start booing. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah,
You're first in
Me and I will see, I think this will work. Don't worry.
got the acronym spelled out right on the title page. I'm just curious if I can, well. We can still see it, right? Awesome, okay. So yeah, as Chris just said, Chris Bradley, the Bureau Chief of our Data and Operations Bureau. And I want to talk about a few things, to do with the integrated provider list. We want to make some updates to our policy on how we apply it. It's sort of a tool in the tool belt for how we operate our workforce programs, adult disability worker. And so I'm really gonna do a little bit of investigation for anyone who doesn't know what the eligible training provider list or ETPL, or probably say ETPL right now, unless you start booing again. So I'll give you guys a quick overview of it and then jump into some discussion to get your thoughts on the directions we could go on and how we set up a policy for that. So really quickly, what is it? Essentially, for us to train someone give a participant in one of our adult participated worker programs, training services, that training program has to be on our eligible training provider list. So it's a curated list that a training provider has to apply to be put onto our list, and then we post that list for everybody to see, so our participants can browse that list. If you're not a participant, you can browse that list and see information about training programs that are out there. And then we have to report on performance outcomes for each and every one of our providers and their programs. So if we have a training provider on our list that offers 3 different programs, one is a lobotomy certificate, one's a medical assistant certificate, one is a medical coding certificate or something along those lines, then for each of those programs, we have to report up to USDOL on what the completion rates for their programs are, employment rates for participants afterwards, and then median earnings in their second quarter after participation, just like we do for our participants. And we have to do that for all of their students, not just WIO students, but those who are either just general students taking those courses on their own, or our participants who we're training for. So for a provider to be on our list really quickly, what that looks like is they have to provide us information about their organization, their programs. So that can be things like give us a description of your school, institution, things like that, because that gets posted online for people to see. If it says Chris Bradley's phlebotomy training school, that would be a description of what my school does, but beyond there, but also things like the tuition fees that are associated, how long the course takes, occupations that course can lead to, and the credentialing you obtain after you complete the training. We have to have requirements for providers to submit data to us for performance reporting, so we can calculate those metrics that I just talked about. And then we have another requirement that any training providers who are out of state have to first be on their own state's ETPL, sort of as a way to have a little bit of sort of accountability there, where we don't necessarily have the familiarity with the training provider that we would if they were, based out of Montana. And I wanted to add a few benefits to what being on the ETPL, why someone may want to be on it. I guess you could think of it as a benefit that you go up on our eligible training provider list, and you're up there and searchable. You may receive referrals from our WIO providers for any potential students they have. And then the last one, I might be stretching a little bit, but not all training providers have access to the kind of data that we have to produce the reporting data for. So we do a wage match, looking at student rosters to create those outcomes. And for some training providers, that may be seen as a benefit, because that gives you something that you can use in looking at the success of your programs, and even potentially like advertising them, or having available to folks when you're recruiting. So current state, what does our ETPL look like? It's fairly expansive right now. And I'll just say, right now we don't necessarily have a lot of policy that limits what can be on our ETPL and what can't be on ETPL. So that's why I'm here. We have 97 providers total who offer 480 to 81 different programs that we've approved. And just for where they are in Montana, we have them in 16 different Montana counties. Definitely with the goal of having training providers close to where our program operators are. So for anyone who wants personal learning, that can be available. We also have a number of providers that are fully remote virtual out of state, went to online learning as well. If you break that down by like what types of providers are out there, we have 70 private training organizations, 12 university system institutions, 12 private or out-of-state colleges, universities, 1 tribal college, that's SKC, Salish Community College, and then 2 apprenticeship providers, RTPL. And then breaking it down by the types of programs, just what sort of credentials they lead to. 70% are certificate programs, 20% lead to associate's degrees, 10% of our programs lead to bachelor's degrees, and then a small percent lead to like professional licensure. And don't check my math, I rounded everything up to the nearest 5, so that's all that is. So this is where I'll slow down. That was like a really quick, maybe I'll pause real quick, because I don't have just general questions about the ETPL really quick. That I can answer, and if not, I'll move into me asking questions for you all about what you think or how we might be able to customize things.
Do you think this is representative of all the programs you're training in the state now? You've done the review, you've got the data, and the data is real?
No, I think that's what we want to improve. Yes, yeah. We do have a really wide variety of training programs. I'll just say that we obviously have a lot of, not necessarily redundancies, but for like location reasons, you might have a similar program in 4 different schools or that sort of thing. And then we also, even though we have this many programs on our list, we probably only use about 20% of them in any given year. So a lot of the programs do go unused, either because of participant demand, or I think a piece of it too is that, we have providers of our programs in small towns, small cities and towns around the state, and they're just in terms of volume, we keep the options there for them on the list, but the programs don't actually get used every year just because we're more students that do it.
Touching on where I was going with my question, so there were 6, I was just thinking there's 16 counties that are representatives on the provider list. What are the total, I mean, I can't do the math, get an average, but just what is the total number of individuals that are utilizing the training across the state? And
yeah, we typically have a ballpark around 1,000 participants every year. Not all of them go into training services. It's probably around half of that, I'd say, in a given year are receiving training services.
is there, think about it from just a sheer supply side of the equation from a workforce perspective, could that number be moved materially up, utilize training, get more people in the workforce? And if so, how do we get, might be an open question here, what we're talking about, but how do we get that 1,000, 3,000 those people on board?
Yeah. I think that comes down to copper participant really is where we end up with what we have. It's inconsistent over time. It's funding is inconsistent.
In regards to quality of the program, there's outcomes that are associated with each program. How often are those outcomes reviewed?
Yeah.
And then if those outcomes are not met, are they then disenrolled from the program?
That's something I'd like to propose us to be doing, yeah. We update the results annually, so it's an annual process where we request the data and then produce those outcomes, and we should put that all into the ETPL has its own, I hope I can use this acronym, the parole report, maybe the participant individual record layout, what we send up for all of our WIOA participants. We did the same thing where we have to do a similar report for each of our training providers and programs. And so that's once a year, yeah. We don't currently have in policy a review mechanism which then removes programs from.
Is this a federal program that's administered by the state?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That's a great question, Dwayne. So for all of you that are new, apologies for diving right in. So WIOA is our federal funding for workforce, broken into 4 parts. 3 of those parts are run by the Department of Labor, 1 is run by Shanda. And one of the functions of this board is you are the federal fiduciary for all WIOA funds in this state. So as we are looking through to what the future of WIOA will look like, it's not currently reauthorized by Congress. It will expire at the end of this fiscal year next June. We're optimistic about the conversations we're hearing and the markups that we're seeing Congress work on to reauthorize and reimagine the program. But right now, we're operating on the last fiscal year of the previously authorized funding, and you are our fiduciary. So things like performance monitoring, ensuring that providers are doing with the money what they're required to do, and who those providers are under the ETPL is one of the tasks of this board. You're the fiduciary, if that's helpful.
Been on doing it, okay, if you reported more often the results, do you think it would help implement things better rather than once a year?
That's a good question.
Report to whom? Can I
Yes.
clarify?
Yeah.
Report to you, report to us, or report to the feds?
Well, I think that you, within the program, so that it's reporting even within the department, if, you know, I mean, but I think you need to look at stuff more often than once a year.
Absolutely.
In order to get a, you know, because you gotta evaluate as you're going. And if we change something that's pretty late in the year to look at it didn't work.
Yeah.
Or it did work, you know, kind of thing.
I think that's great feedback, Dwayne. Not to take us too far off track, but Heather, who chairs our WIOA subcommittee, and the members of that group have battled pretty hard over the last year, almost 2 years, working on getting the reporting more regular, more routine. And so, as far as I'm concerned, the department is happy to be an open book to this advisory group. However often you want the information, we are happy to share it. I would advocate that we not involve the feds more often than needed. Absolutely.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think, you know, in thinking through some of the only factors to consider is that there's, you know, and we see this in our like, enrollment flows throughout the years, that there's obviously times of year that certain programs start and end. So you don't necessarily get new information until a semester or school year ends. And then other programs, you know, it is more intermittent because they may just go on like 6 or 12-week cohorts and how long they last. But so those kind of factors will maybe change program by program what you can do on a regular basis.
What's the delay in the job placement and earnings data? Those are 2 of your outcomes.
Yeah.
How long until you can actually report that for a program?
Yeah, that's another. So those are fairly lagged since we're using unemployment insurance wage data to do that. Once someone completes their program, the measure itself is employment 2 and 4 quarters after they complete the program. So that's, you know, up to a year plus the time it takes for that data to become available to us, which is another 6 months.
And just to clarify for you folks,
So that
you have to be on this list and do this report if you're going to be providing training that one of these WIOA programs might pay to help the students with whatever they need on that training experience, right?
One of the other things that I was gonna add, so, Chris has a few slides here to talk about some things that we've discussed internally in terms of an ability to put some, guardrails up on this list. But one of the things that we're hoping to do with some of our new technology is to also build in some information for, the person who may be looking at the list to take a training. And for employers to be able to look to see what types of trainings are, you know, am I drawn to, am I interested in for my teams as well. And so, what we're hoping to do is share with you some parameters that we think are important, and get your feedback to see if there's anything else that we're missing, or if there's any way that you would like to kind of shape that. So just looking for your insights there. And I think, Chris, I'm really glad to hear the questions that are coming up, because you're like going right through his slides here. So I'm glad that we're on the right track.
I have a question. Sorry, this is a rookie question, might have been answered before, but I got to repeat it because I'm new. This has a lot to do with the trainings provided by the colleges and tech schools around the state, correct?
Yeah, there are programs from the colleges and tech schools.
Do you track in-state versus out-of-state placement with that?
Yes, so as part of our annual process of producing our reports, we run our data through a system that matches against out-of-state wage records, so across the whole country.
Okay, are you gonna show that or can I get that data later?
We can update, we can share the results later, yeah. I didn't pull in much of the actual performance data itself in this conversation.
That's a great question, Erin. Absolutely. We'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
I should add, though, everything is lumped together, so it's the total rate, not necessarily in-state and out-of-state, it's two separate measures, just to clarify.
I would think for the purposes of this board, we would want to know who is getting placed in state. So for training people, are they staying here? Are they working here? Are they, satisfying our mission as a SWIB board?
A great question, Erin. We'll do some digging on that,
Okay.
and figure out the best way to report that back.
Thank
How many
you.
years you been doing this?
We have been doing it for, so the eligible training provider list was created as a requirement, I want to say, when WIOA was passed, maybe 15, 16. We have waivers, that kept us from needing to produce the reporting for a few years, and it's only in the past 4 years, I want to say, that we've been producing the performance data. And we definitely have work to do on the quality of it. Yeah.
But it'd be nice to see what the trends been, you
Yeah.
know, for whatever reporting you have. I wouldn't go back and generate a whole bunch of numbers that are hard, but to see the improvements that are being made.
We can look at it and see what kind of historical analysis we can provide. So, the funding originated clear back in the late 90s under a program called WIA, the Workforce Innovation Act. I think it was 2014, maybe, President Obama signed the new WIOA that we're under now, 9 years later, that's running out of authorization. And we report monthly to our federal partners under a document called the Pearl, that I love to hate because they change it every single month. And so there's no standard baseline month over month. They're constantly changing it. But I am certain that our folks can pull out some themes and get some historical reporting. It's just not something we have right now. We're gonna have to work on it. Give us a little bit and we'll come up with something. Maybe that's a good segue if I can take a minute of your time, Chris. We are about to kick off our it's a 5-year research project that we do every 5 years together with our friends at OCHI. Once upon a time, it was called the College Report. When we issued it 4 years ago, we called it the Montana Post-Secondary Opportunity Outcome Report or something thereabout.
Boy, that sounds like a doable acronym.
We work together and we issue a publication to the public. It's essentially a reflection on the university system. Not necessarily a report card, if you will, but it's a reflection on, here are the actual jobs that existed in our workforce during this period. And here's the percentage of those jobs that our public university system, 2 years and 4 years, were prepared. What percent did they unserve entirely? What did we oversupply in number of degrees to fill those jobs? And where are our gaps still in training programs? We're just starting that work. It's a year-long project before we'll have some things. We're gonna look to publish that right before the 2027 legislative session. So a little precursor that that's coming. This will all lead into it. And we are very interested in the partnerships that OCHI has developed to potentially help us include all of our tribal colleges in this year's report. And welcome aboard, Dwight. I've been talking to Adam and some of your colleagues in labor to start potentially including some of the JATCs and your training outcomes as well for filling those, especially building trades, workforce opportunities. So lots to come there. Dwayne, I think maybe more of this work can be done through some of those publications we do rather than the very rigid WIOA reporting. Because I'd like to keep the feds out of our sandbox if we can.
And if I can just add one item, one area that I know will likely be included in this follow-up report is the feds being useful have created a census portal that have allowed us to more regularly match post-secondary student outcomes nationally, which used to be a big challenging gap in the unemployment insurance systems is legal agreements and data complexities. That was pretty difficult. So this will be the first report where we'll have you know, nationwide access to understand if our graduates are leaving the state, where are they working, what are they doing, how are they faring?
Does that mean we'll have benchmarking as well, or do you already have that?
We're gonna have to dive into benchmarking. Like, we have a fair amount of benchmarks. But there's a lot, I think, with new information this next round where we'll be able to make comparisons that were impossible before. And also, you know, it is very exciting to think, in past, we've largely been able to do this for higher education because that's where we had the most complete data. Now being able to have other training providers, travel colleges, I think give us a more fulsome picture of post-secondary training in the state.
Yeah, that's a really big gap that always glares to me, right? If we show in this college report that, the university system is underserving the building trades industry by 70%, but we've got our JATCs oversupplying or meeting supply, it's just a different reflection. So let's pull all the data and do a better job at what's the true state of gaps in our workforce system and what do we need to fund? And then that'll lead all of you into next spring when we start talking about, yay, we always reauthorize. How are we gonna spend the money? We'll know where the actual gaps are.
All right, so I'll jump back into this, and I think maybe a segue there too is that the ETPL may be a place to gather more of that post-secondary outcome information because you have a lot of these certificate, short-term training programs that end up on our list that, yeah, aren't necessarily reported anywhere else that you can find. So going back to my, you know, looking at some criteria that we can add to our policy to define if we like allow or don't allow onto our ATPL. We just attach some more policy right now. So we're getting applications in, that decision-making process is really guided by anything really formal to say yea or nay. A couple of things about providers that have come up, we're seeing from our program manager, works mostly on this the most, that there's a lot of new providers coming up who we don't haven't necessarily been in operation for very long or haven't established presence in the state. So we're thinking about time in operation as a criteria to include, so we know that we're getting a training program that has been around long enough to have demonstrated success essentially. Plus a demonstrated ability to collect and provide the performance data, because collecting performance data has been another challenge for a lot of our training providers. And so, you know, whether that be something that the provider can submit to data to us in advance or some really strict, you know, kind of have our probationary period and then our dropped if we have to data things along those lines is sort of work. And then program criteria, some things that have come up more recently is whether we include any and all types of programs, whether like the degree or certificate or credential you obtain, as well as the duration, the program duration. So do we focus on programs that are, you know, shorter term, so that we're seeing like a quicker turnaround to having people into the workforce. That's something that has been tossed around. There are other states we know that, you know, do put some restrictions on where your programs can be on the ATPL. And then a second, which I'll dive pretty deep into an example of what another state is doing, but whether the program leads to an in-demand job or a high-value credential would be a criteria that we have. And we want to look to do this using a less or a more objective methodology to the extent that you can, you know, how you set your systems up. Obviously, there's always has some sort of subjectivity to it. But so before I pause and talk about these, I want to just quickly run through for time this example of what Indiana does that we kind of would like to look at. Although, was there a question?
Yeah, how do we determine a high value credential?
Yeah, I will get into, okay, I'll run through this and I'll talk about that, but I think really quick, you know, this would be a way to do that, but the concept would be a credential that's associated with an occupation that is in like a top or high demand occupation. Would be the reason there. But so this is what Indiana does. They call it Top Jobs Indiana. Just created this or launched it this year. So it's relatively new for them. And if they have a methodology for creating a job demand score that ranges from 1 to 5, 5 being more in demand, 1 being less in demand. And through that, for their eligible training provider list, they say that any occupation whose top job ranking is 3 or higher can be included on their ETPL, so it has to at least meet that threshold. And I put a URL here in case you wanted to see like how this shakes out for them in terms of what occupations show up as top jobs. Don't necessarily, but what they do is they have like a weighted formula that they assign a different number of labor market indicators for every occupation that's out there in the standard occupational permitting system. And each providing a different, contributing a different amount to the final score, but essentially they look at the demand for a job, so like job projections, job openings going forward, job retention, so looking at stability of a job, how often these jobs turn over, sort of to balance against demand, where you're just looking at job openings, because you know your jobs like cashiers and retail associates and things like that have really, you know, high job openings. You just look at that. Growth, so how many job openings are specifically coming from growth in that occupation, just expanding, and then they look at earnings to look at the, you know, the value of that job for employers based on the earnings that they have, and then also to make sure that your top jobs or your in-demand jobs that you're putting towards your programs go up as a result of average jobs as well. And then with each of these, with the tricky thing to balance is what each of your weights are. So they have like 35% demand, 28% retention, 25% growth, and 12% earnings. That's something that, you know, we wouldn't necessarily carbon copy this if we did something like this, but look at, you know, different data sources and also different ways of weighting these things to get to a, you know, list, if you will, that are a top job scoring system that works well for us. They also place an earnings threshold. So essentially, for any score that a job can be given, there's a, you know, like a ceiling that caps it. So the example here is, let's just say that a plumber, a 4 to 5 star rating job, most likely. This is not the case, but let's just say the average wage for a plumber was only $45,000. It would make it so that that would only be able to go as high as a 3. It just maybe makes more sense where a job that's in very high demand might be a, I don't have a good one off the top of my head, but so we might take an example of a job that's definitely a 4 to 5, but big wages for me. So they take these 3 things and they produce a weighted score, they calculate the rating, and then they apply this earning threshold, and those 3 things put together gives a score from 1 to 5. And then again, just has to be, you know, a training has to lead to an occupation that scores 3 or higher for it to get onto your ETPL.
Can you dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah.
Because I think it is, we see this often that how trainings are classified doesn't necessarily correspond 1-to-1 with how occupations are classified. So how that happens could be important.
Yeah. I think that's something we would have to figure out as we set something like this up. This is definitely like a long-term idea. It's going to take time to develop. One of the first things that comes to my mind is, like I said, the providers, as they apply for the program, have to tell us what occupations their trainings lead to. They can provide us with up to 3. So, you know, we could lean on what those are, you know, as long as we validate those occupations make sense based on the classifications, you know, that we have for the programs. There's other tools you can use. You could look at, Indiana uses Lightcast as a data source, and a lot of the legwork happens with the contractor, but they look at job listings and they tie training programs and credentials to occupations through what's showing up in job postings. And if they have a certain percentage of job postings show a training or a credential and you know, associated with that job. Was how they did it. So there's something you can do like that as well. The last thing they do on the side, as a last step, and this is really so that the scoring is not the be all end all on whether a job can end up on training program coming up under ETPL, is they look at a few descriptive indicators to look at things that can't necessarily be measured by the data we looked at earlier, sometimes aren't necessarily easily quantifiable. So job transferability, upward mobility, job stability, and then skill change in a job. So how much is a job's skill demand evolving? So training may be necessary. These are all things that they have a descriptive indicator for, and depending on how an occupation fits into these, that can push it from a 2 to a 3 or a 3 to a 4. Based on these, and create exemptions. So that and this just as an example, like a CNA program, certified nursing assistant, may not score very high in top jobs because retention is probably not very high, wages are not very high, things like that. But it's a job that can be transferable, has a lot of ability. There may be a lot of skill change going on, those things. So that may essentially create a mechanism of an exemption for it to be placed onto it. All right. So that'd be an example that I ran through really quickly. 30 minutes may not have been enough time to really dive deep into it. But I mean, that's some things that we're looking at doing, and I wanted to just get any of your thoughts on like directions you would like to see us go as we put together a more concrete proposal to update our policies. Right.
So because we are focused on 406 jobs.
Yes.
And we have 6 identified high need sectors. I think it would make sense that we somehow dovetail that into the work of the ETPLs. I mean, that would make sense to me. Another question for you on the ETPL providers. Do we look at cost of programs? Because there's some bad actors out there that might come into our state, and the cost of those programs are extremely high, which sets up some of our Montanans to maybe not be as successful as they could be. I'm trying to be very careful about this. But I'm wondering, is that something that we look at to make sure that at least what they're charging for those courses or whatever it may be, or at least middle of the road and not higher?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm asking?
Yeah, we could, that's something that we could add in, as a criteria to look at. I know that that's something that's probably being tackled on both sides as well. There's what's on our list, but then also what our providers can and would pay for, knowing that they have a caseload that they need to serve on. And I know there are times when, there may be like a portion of the tuition being covered because they're leveraging other funding resources.
Chris, what's the best way for training providers to communicate with you and your team to explore getting on the list, like our JATC friends or others? What do they do?
Yes, so Shelley DeLegio is our program manager. And I think we can, I'd like to talk to her about getting this, but the other thing you can do is with the launch of our new employee system, there is a online portal that a training provider can put an application in to be on the ETPL. And once that happens, she gets notified and reaches out, makes contact, and starts that process. So either of those are options. It is montanaworks.gov/training, I think is the site, which also is where you get linked to or connect with our program manager.
Is this gonna be all tied back to the STARS program too then?
That is a fabulous question.
Yes.
Good job.
And actually that goes back to Adam's question earlier too, which is credentials of value. And I think that somehow having this concept of a in-demand job scoring system tying to the credentials that are valuable for those jobs would be a way to connect that to the STARS Act and future aid payments.
So ultimately, this board is responsible for recommending to the agency and not the other way around. You recommend to us, how should we implement our ETPL and what changes should we make and what should we do? So this is an introductory conversation, but I just applaud you doing absolutely. The legislature gave Montana a great gift in the STARS Act by creating this credential repository and administrative rule of all the credentials that employers identify to us have value in Montana. Absolutely, we should connect them. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, it's gonna give you a measuring tool too.
Well, and maybe, so sorry, Adam, go for it.
Yeah, I might, there are some professions that tie really well a high value credential to a job. I think about a CPA. There's some licensure pieces that make it really simple. I'm not sure we have a good handle in, at least in the industry I'm in, about what those through credentials are to some of the careers. So as we think about classifying it high value, at least in these 6 priority industries, I think we probably need to dive in further into what those are to help us determine what success looks like.
Yeah, I'd be really curious about that Lightcast analysis you mentioned. And like, I've seen how we try and do some of this in terms of American Community Survey and understanding people's, educational pathway related to their employment outcomes. And it gets hairy.
Yeah.
Really, really. The 2 other comments is I wholeheartedly agree with the commissioner that to the degree we are establishing high demand industries or definitions of credentials of value, if we can not create 5 of those lists and instead settle on 1 across the different areas that are requesting that work, that's definitely something I'd advocate for. And for this board to know that something on that front is also passage of Workforce Pell, which extends Pell grants to shorter term training. And that's something this board will advise on, and thinking about ETPL definitions, future ready definitions, Workforce Pell definitions, and like how they're all slightly different programs for slightly different purposes, but how we can have some tools and definitions around these things that are cross purpose would be great. Second is, I do think for everyone, the application and performance data and the operations of those is something to think through, and how we make it so that providers who ought to be on this list can get on this list and report the data. And one idea there, I know that we have good university system relationships for board credit data reporting, but thinking about, if we have clear criteria as the Board of Regents or others are approving a university program to study, can we automatically have that on this list rather than having all of those folks go through a second layer of applications and approvals?
That's a great suggestion, Jeff.
Chris, I'm not sure how to ask this, and the answer might be no, but thinking about Heather's comment, tying it back to 406 jobs. I get it from a dislocated worker, from a WEO perspective, there's only so many dollars to serve so many people, that pathway. But if we're looking at trying to think about the whole strategic plan as it thinks about this, provider listing, we're targeting not just underemployed, but, really the 100,000 people that aren't in the workforce, that aren't gonna fit within a WIOA program specifically. And I was thinking about one of your first slides, you said WIOA and non-WIOA, on paragraphs and then it's kind of gets back to that 0 barriers thing. It's part of the plan. We've got training providers listed, we've got programs listed, but is there a section that can help those people navigating that to give them some clarity on how can this be funded? Maybe that comes from the schools, but it seems like that's a barrier in terms of all these grant acronyms. Is that gonna be a barrier for people to, I throw my hands up, I don't get it. How am I gonna fund this? But just give some clarity on what pathways will be there.
So we are looking at, as we look to update our career exploration tools and job board list, to have some connectivity from that in our TPL and the credential registries, that these things are all communicated. I know there's a goal to try and bring them all together, so that is a little clear. Yeah, so if I'm looking at a list of training programs, for credentials, I can see which ones are our TPL, which would imply, I could potentially seek, WIOA support to training.
I really appreciate this conversation. We've been looking at things too, and we spend a ton of money on secondary education and the predatory school problems and trying to, with the limited, obviously resources are becoming more limited. How do we want to create some boundaries to invest wisely? And when we just did a study last week and dove into the data, and across the training programs we support, 4-year college education, we actually get a negative return on investment compared to junior colleges and our grad school students. So there's definitely some work to be done here in supporting what are our staff saying as career counselors to the job seeker, and then better policies and guidelines as to what kind of programs are we going to put our public dollars towards. So I really appreciate this conversation, and it's pretty dynamic, a lot going on, so appreciate the work.
Thank you for everyone's feedback. I don't want to take any more of the time for the next conversation about holistic jobs. And I'll have one more slide and Malcolm already hit on it. That looking at removing programs based on performance and how well they train students into jobs and how those jobs, something that we can look at as a maintenance aspect of the program. So I don't need to go over that again, because we touched on that first. So just thank you all for all the feedback. We're gonna take this and kind of run with it, and hopefully have some good ideas for how to update our policy that we use. Going forward.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we see if we can take a 10-minute break? If we can, then we can jump in. I can't see, is Jennifer in the room now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so let's take a 10-minute and come back at 2:15, or excuse me, 3:15. I'm on a different time zone right now. We'll go.
2:15.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
So, I mean, it was just a very preliminary, because we're like, we've got to figure out. We've done so many.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, to not make a scene, I'm gonna have to depart here at 2:30. So Heather will pick it up, but we're gonna turn it over to Jennifer and look forward to hearing an update on 406 jobs.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was like,
Jennifer.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, I'm still looking.
Jennifer, I'm so glad you're here today. Thanks, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you all are here. I'm happy to see everybody.
They're my guys. Boy, yeah, right. Yeah. Where are you?
It's just a little tricky to hear. Having been on the phone for the first part of this meeting, it's a little tricky to hear when folks are talking. So can everybody online hear okay? Good. Okay, so we're gonna talk through, you received this in your packet, the year 1 work plan outline. I had hoped to have a draft for you all today, but there are a couple of things that pushed us back a little bit in timing. Most notably, the commissioner wanted to end the road show and get all of the state's input into it, which doesn't end until October 30th. And then the first cabinet meeting that is required under the executive order will happen next week. And there'll be some decisions that will come out of that that are important to be incorporated. So what we're gonna do today is go through the outline of what I am recommending to you all as the year 1 priorities. And this is a conversation. I want your feedback, I want your input. There are areas where some things are fairly set in stone and some things where there's lots of room for discussion. There are some gaps, but what I've incorporated here generally are things that are already underway, trains that are already moving. There's a couple of brand new things that we need to talk about, but I really do want this to be a conversation as we go by these piece by piece. Before I dive into the 14-ish action items that we have here for our year 1 work plan, I do want to just capture a little bit, I don't think we've had a moment to talk about how the Montanans at Work statewide tour is going. It is going well. We are having good turnout and good engagement. We have done on 406 jobs
We've done some live polling with the audience to ask some questions that is incorporated here in the feedback. Thank you to Heather, who kicked us off, and to Tammy and the commissioner, who've done most of the presentations around the state. It has been good conversation. What we're hearing when we ask people for feedback, when they are asked to identify barriers, overwhelmingly, regardless of location, they're saying transportation. Transportation comes up as a chronic barrier. So we're gonna talk about how that fits into some of the local sector partnerships that we want to develop here. Then everything kind of scatters a little bit. You'll see childcare and housing in some places, a lot of commentary. This is a word cloud, it's self-volunteered, a lot of commentary about attitudes towards work ethic, those sorts of things. And then when we ask people what skills the workforce needs most, far and away it's employability skills. Show up on time, be punctual, learn how to deal with conflict in the workplace, learn how to communicate, basic employability skills, the kinds of things that Jobs for Montana graduates develop are really what employers are saying overwhelmingly are the biggest needs. So we are seeing some good feedback that will guide our conversations today, and then we'll continue to incorporate that in the final version. If you have not read Executive Order 5-2025 yet, please do. It is going to guide our work, it's gonna guide the whole state's work. And so in that executive order, you all, SWIB, not me anymore, you all, are directed to send back to the governor by November 11th, a year one work plan. Please remember that you are the State Workforce Innovation Board, and this is a statewide work plan. So you might have passed out a little bit when you saw the long list of action items, but remember, they don't belong to this board. This board is a convener and a facilitator, is here to make recommendations and to engage the workforce. The work is done in the private sector, at DLI, at OPI, in our university system, with our local education and training providers, with DPHHS, with our partner agencies, with our partner employers, with our partner training providers. This board is here to guide, oversee, and recommend. So please, first of all, don't worry that we have a whole lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it in. But second of all, remember that this needs to be inclusive. It needs to be the language of the entire statewide work system. So if you've seen things that I've missed because I exist in the world of DLI, please don't hesitate to jump in here. And where I may have mischaracterized or under-referenced things because it's not in my wheelhouse, it's not intentional, it's designed just to get us going on the conversation. But at the end of the day, we are going to present in less than a month to the governor what we recommend for year one under 406 jobs. It is going to look like a lot of foundational work. It's some projects that are already underway, and it's some foundational work of getting this socialized, getting it adopted, getting some pieces in place to begin closing the gap. Because remember, here we have 4 overarching goals. The first, every Montanan with a pathway to a career and a plan to achieve it. We want to increase the number of Montanans who are achieving financial self-sustainability. We want to increase labor force participation, right? So we know the things that we want to get accomplished broadly, and now we're going to start about some action items. The year one is really going to begin mobilizing us in the direction forward. Any questions on that before I dive in further? Commissioner, Crystal, Tammy, Heather, anything more you want to share about the roadshow that I haven't?
I just want to start with a thank you. I mean, we're here because of the incredible work you all did for well over a year developing the plan. The governor accepted the plan, he signed the plan, we're starting to socialize it, and now we actually get to put recommendations in action. So much like Jen said, please lean way in. I know online participation is hard. But Jim, you're our spokesperson today for labor. Dwight is here in the room, but he's brand new. So make sure that all the voices are heard today. What we do with this matters before we go to our cabinet and our other colleagues in state agencies. Big opportunity, and we're picking up momentum on the road. It's been good. We've got half the tour left. And I'm excited to see where this can go. So lean in for the next hour, please.
Anything else? Okay, so let's dive in here. We're gonna take these one at a time. I'm very intentionally not numbering them because they don't rank order, right? These are all things that need to happen. We have very nice graphic designers, very smart people to lay this out in a way that's accessible to the community. But one of the most significant, I think, priority initiatives in the work plan, in my recommendation to you all, should be increasing apprenticeships. It's clearly something that the governor is deeply interested in. It's something that is getting engagement and traction statewide. It cuts across all 4 or all 3 of our 406 jobs planks, right? It is one of those pathways to work that we want to lift up and hold on equal footing with all others. It brings down barriers to work by allowing people to earn and learn, and B, access training in their own communities. And it is certainly something that we know folks are thinking about locally as they talk about closing individual occupational talent gaps. So I've identified here a couple of action items. Again, these are things already underway. So if we've missed things, Tammy, I hope you could help me take some notes here. But if we've missed things that you know are happening, let's get them incorporated. But here's what I can tell you is happening already. The legislature took a big swing in the 2025 session and included 32 new professions as allowing apprenticeships as a way to get occupational licensing. So that is being implemented. There's quite a bit of rulemaking happening around that. And I think then the conversation continues of, are there additional barriers? Are there additional places where occupational licensing cannot be attained through apprenticeship? And do we need to continue this work to bring down that barrier? We are fortunate to have received a grant and have been selected to participate in a National Governors Association stakeholder group on defining and developing youth and pre-apprenticeship pathways. Youth and pre-apprenticeship is not a term we've defined in the state of Montana. Most states face that same challenge too. So we have a work team together. It includes myself, well, it will include Tammy, not me, Crystal, and then Sarah as our apprenticeship advisory committee, plus some internal folks, to talk about what do we mean when we say pre-apprenticeship in Montana. Generally, what we mean is building skills that allow you to be successful in an apprenticeship. What do we mean when we talk about youth apprenticeship, right? Generally, we mean getting them an apprenticeship with some wraparound services that help very young people, 16 to 25, be more successful in an apprenticeship program. But we don't have firm foundations of that. And we don't have defined pathways for that. We have a childcare pre-apprenticeship program. We see some incredible work going on in our tribal colleges to bring in the multi-craft core curriculum as a pre-apprenticeship model. We know there are pieces out there. But a statewide initiative to define pre-apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship pathways, to figure out how that integrates into our registered apprenticeship program, potentially into the credential registry that we'll talk about here for a moment. These things are undefined. So NGA has invited us to be a part of a best practices group. They've given us a little bit of money to implement. So this is something that we will be working on for the next year. Defining apprenticeship pathways is a big question mark. Our registered apprenticeship program does a wonderful job of partnering with employers to develop apprenticeships. But if you, an employer, want to just go online and figure out what a apprenticeship in a particular occupation looks like, that doesn't exist here locally. It exists federally, but Montana, again, is one of those half of the states in the country that is its own state apprenticeship agency. We don't need the feds to approve a registered apprenticeship program. We approve them. The commissioner approves them here in the state. And so we don't have this sort of online repository of defined apprenticeship pathways that might improve employer engagement, might give more weight to the apprenticeship credential that comes out. Some of these bits and pieces are missing. And then we continue to hear from employers and employees alike that particularly in non-traditional trade type positions or non-traditional occupations, the incentives aren't cutting it. The tax incentives are not moving people into it. They're not moving employers into it. Whatever the incentive structure that we have to encourage this isn't working. And so over the next year, I would recommend to you all that we begin to engage our stakeholders in what incentives make sense and do those result in some sort of legislative priority in the 2027 session. And then, as you know, Montana has been awarded $4 million for teacher apprenticeships. That's going to get implemented around the state, predominantly in rural and remote areas. But establishing that new, very significant apprenticeship pathway helps us to answer a lot of questions. Most notably, when the employer here, the school, doesn't have a huge capacity to adjust wages, how can we backfill? How can we create incentives? How can we help things make sense in a way that we're extending education and training capacity around the state? So these are the apprenticeship action things that are happening right now. Now, I know there's a few other things that are out there that we've heard on the roadshow. And we've heard this from a number of our partners in organized labor as well, is that there's a real pathway pinch point in a number of occupations in that we don't have enough trainers. We don't have enough preceptors. We don't have capacity. Even if 10,000 people wanted to be apprentices, we could not accommodate them now. So there may be a conversation to have here. We may want to consider a priority action item of figuring out what it's going to take in various sectors and various occupations to actually open up the pipeline and allow more people to come in. That's a conversation that we've heard coming out of the roadshow. So let's start with conversation on apprenticeships.
Just very quickly, the pre-apprenticeship programs, we've heard that the DOC say that they have 82 pre-apprenticeships, is that the number? I mean, it's a very high number, it's somewhere around there. One, I don't think they've connected it with Department of Labor yet, maybe Sarah can, talk to us, and they were talking about doing that. But that would also be something helping out with the definition and working very closely there as we then transfer those folks into reentry, but I think that needs to be tied in as well.
Okay, so connecting apprenticeship and reentry programs.
I think the conversation, you and I have had this before, so I'm gonna jump
Go ahead.
ahead a little bit. There's a difference in apprenticeship of big A or little a, right? A big A apprenticeship is a registered apprenticeship or a registered pre-apprenticeship, registered with us as the state approving agency, that we then notify the feds through the rapid system, and you are a registered apprenticeship or a registered pre-apprenticeship. We have a lot of things and programs and folks running around Montana saying, this is an apprenticeship, little a. It is not recognized, it is not leading anywhere. It is training, and I don't want to take away from the opportunity that these young people or these workers are obtaining, but it doesn't lead anywhere. The federal government has a very specific definition of a pre-apprenticeship, which is it must connect directly to launch you in an apprenticeship. And if it doesn't connect, it's not registerable and it's not big A apprenticeship. This goes back to the earlier conversation around things like credentials of value and words matter. We have entire nonprofits built in Montana around apprenticeships, but they're little a. And that's not an apprenticeship. We're just sharing a word at this point. We are working with DOC to try to get their pre-apprenticeship pathways registered. There's some connection that has to happen here that they actually lead into an apprenticeship though. Right. They're calling a lot of things pre-apprenticeship, say on the building trades, that don't quite qualify you to jump right into the laborers, the operators, or the electricians. There's some work to be done. So they're not registered yet either in all of those, but they understand the exercise here. So we're working with it. But I would challenge you as SWIB members, as we're talking about this in our communities and your industries especially. And if you look around this room, we've been very strategic at inviting all of you to join us and getting you appointed by the governor. Because with the exception of hospitality recreation right now, every one of our 406 job segments is represented in this room. You are speaking for more than just yourself. You're speaking for your industry. We're still working on that last one. If you know anybody, send them my way. But with that said, as you're talking about this, that conversation, big A, little a, matters. People calling things apprenticeships that aren't is a hurdle we're gonna have to jump.
And it's one we're gonna have to jump in a number of sectors when we talk here in a second about the credential registry, right? The credential registry is very clearly for industry recognized credentials. That means something. It leads to worker mobility. It leads to portability. It's this credential of value concept. The fact that we have, one school working with one employer and that one employer recognizes a credential does not make it an industry recognized credential. The same thing is true with an apprenticeship. When somebody says, I was a pre-apprentice or a youth apprentice or an apprentice, we want those capital letters. We want them to mean something, whether you're in Montana or another state. That's the value of the registered apprenticeship program, is we're creating worker mobility. And so whether it's talking about apprenticeships or credentials, we really need to keep in mind the service to the worker here. First of all, we want to give employers certainty of what they are getting when somebody comes in the door and says, I have this credential. But we also want to give workers mobility. We want something that means something outside of our own spheres.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So in regards to those road trips and what we're hearing in regards to those core competencies, like knowing how to talk to a customer, those kind of things. Is there a way to incorporate that into the youth apprenticeships or the pre-apprenticeships? Because I think those are skill sets.
I can answer that. We just, this morning at the apprenticeship advisory council meeting, we did discuss that specifically. And what are the soft skills that need to be incorporated in there that make somebody employable? Great, so yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's in my notes. The one thing I was gonna say is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but the governor, his goal for us is to have 24,000 apprentices. Is that correct?
That is my job to recalibrate. That is his current goal.
Okay.
I have lots of thoughts about how we're gonna grow from 4,000 to 24,000 in a year.
Well,
You leave
because
the boss
that's
to
what
make-
I have, I'm like, infrastructure, that is my big, and that's what we're hearing. We already don't quite have the infrastructure for what we have, right? And so.
Even if we were just to double the number of apprentices, I'm not sure we have the infrastructure in place to do that.
Exactly, and so that's my only piece of our contribution here, is making sure that we really set that up well, so that we can have that curve go in the direction that he wants it.
But then that becomes my question back to you is, okay, not that, but then what? What is the goal? Do we want to talk about increasing the number of apprenticeship pathways that are defined and registered? Do we want to talk about creating the overall number of apprentices in the state? Do we want to focus on trainers and preceptors and all of that? I mean, what are the metrics that SWIP says these are the things that really matter?
Can you explain to me exactly, I know that we've got the apprenticeship program through job service, or it's not through job service, but workforce development, yeah. Where else are we looking at setting up apprenticeships besides that one funnel there? Is it through NGOs you had said?
No,
Or are they
no,
part of the number?
So anything that would count as a big A apprenticeship has to be registered through the Workforce Service Division. They are what's called the SAA, the State Approving Agency. They are the only big A apprenticeship in the state.
So we
authorized.
really are talking infrastructure here.
We are, so,
Yeah.
an example, we've got, Reach Hire does a tremendous job of youth apprenticeships, but those are little A, they're not registered, they don't count in our numbers, right? And so it's just a common language of the word.
So one of the things that I think makes the most sense to me is to make sure that we have quality mentors for our apprentices. And so what are the metrics of those quality mentors? What skills do they have to have? What qualifications do they need to be able to exhibit in order to be in that role? Because right now we're looking at having so many different industries. There's got to be some common ground and some common expectations across all of those.
Dwight or Jim, do you guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, so. And it's kind of been a fight ever since I've been in the trades. How far do you go with the schools? I think you can do an entry level. The basic foundations that you need for any apprenticeship is math, science. And actually with the Lyon International, they have a program that can go into a school and help to develop that. When a person gets done with it, they don't necessarily have to go into a laborers program, but they have enough of foundation, they can go into pretty much any apprenticeship program, which I can get you guys in touch with our international portion on that. So it works out fairly well. What they kind of make an ask of to the school district that'll be implementing this is someone that is worked in the trades to be a teacher for that school district. So they've got a foundational awareness of, the different skill sets that you need to be out there in the workforce with it. Something like that, I think, can kind of work across the board, because in high school, when I went through high school, I always did well in school, but the means for me to get through high school is to go play football. And there's, programs that are kind of set in place for that. If high schools are truly going to make pathways into the workforce, they need to kind of sit down with each of and not like each individual, but kind of have different pathways of going into the workforce. Not everyone's going to go to college. Not everyone is, designed or meant to go into college. And so if you have these different programs in high school, especially if you did a program that was like this, that people like being outdoors, so they like working with their hands. They don't mind when it's 30 below zero or if it's 100 degrees outside. Those are the people that are going to go into the apprenticeship programs because we're used to doing the hard, heavy work. And likewise with the prison system as well. And I'm gonna single out laborers because I've been to the East Coast and the West Coast this year, seeing the different programs, and there is a lot of people that are going into the laborers that are coming out of the prison system. Biggest reason is their construction across the board is more willing to accept anything that's coming out of the prison system. For lack of a better word, it is one of the places that they can go into that people don't necessarily judge you because you're coming out of the prison system. Hell, there's a lot of people that are on the job sites that, you almost expect it just because of, the way that they look. And again, that's one of the things where, people are kind of prejudging, but it's just kind of hand in hand with construction. So there is a way that you can get into the schools and make it more accepting, make it easier for, because not everyone, it's like, I don't want to go to school, you know, if it wasn't for football, I wasn't looking at going to college or anything. Matter of fact, after I did blow my knee out, that was what, I was like, well, if I'm not playing football, there's no reason to be in school. And that's what put me into the construction trades. But
You're a trainer, right? At the
Yeah.
JTC, how many new laborers could you take on today?
so that would be the hard one because the program's been defunct since the eighties. And so I was hired on to reinvent the program.
Oh, wow.
So we just got our standards redone up. I'd like to be able to say that I could jump to 100 people right away. If I had a couple of instructors, yes. I
That's the
could.
question.
That's
the
instructor. You can take 4 concrete finishers in a program starting next week in Helena.
Yes, right now,
Bite-sized
we've got
pieces, right?
4 openings for someone to learn fundamentals of concrete work. So it's like, yes, I've got the availability start, you know, gearing up. My biggest thing is getting people that have the qualifications to be able to do that instruction,
Yeah.
which I'm looking at the membership to be able to do that stuff. I've got 4 people right now that are going to be helping out with those. Cause one of the things that, and it's kind of like a fight that I'm having with the trustees, like, they want me to do that training. It's like, I'm a master electrician, so I can teach you anything about electricity and what to do to not light yourself up. But when it comes to doing concrete work, which I've learned recently that the difference between cement and concrete is.
So I think this is what we're hearing, is that in the skilled trades, it's having people who can conduct the training. But then once they've done their training, actually getting out and doing the work, there's a real infrastructure for that. And then I hear the reverse in some of the non-traditional occupations. Because in things like healthcare, for example, we're gonna rely on our 2 years as the related training provider. But then getting people into the work environment and having a preceptor nurse or pharmacy tech, that's the infrastructure pinch point there. Is that fair?
Yes, and so I don't know why we've got to talk about the foundation piece of it, the trainers and the educators. And so nursing, I'm an RN, and so nursing is struggling with this as well. We want to have more nurses in the workforce, but we don't have enough instructors. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So I'm kind of backing into like, what is the average age of your electricians? Are they, how old are they? And are they, I'll use myself as an example. I don't think I could get back on the floor and work a 12-hour shift, 6 in a row. I just don't physically think I could do that. But I have the years of experience and knowledge to be able to stand by a nurse or 2 nurses or 3 nurses as they're learning and really provide them with some really good, thoughtful, education and knowledge. So my question is how can we partner with our education programs, whatever it might be, with those, my examples, nurses who are getting close to retirement, but we have so much knowledge and we don't want to lose that and have them retire and go out the door. So how do we create those relationships to then build on that training and those trainers and those educators? That's.
Jim, did you want to jump in on any of this?
Yeah, I hear a couple different things going on. The instructors, that's always the tough one. And Heather kind of hit it right. We tend to use the retired guys. Our instructors are pretty knowledgeable. They had a lot of service underneath them. They can't do it. It's not that they can't do it. It's that they choose to give back. And that's what we say, we're giving back. They come in to do that. That's one way that we do this, but we're kind of a unique that way. They can come into a facility and they can teach hands-on. They can also teach out of the books, things like that. So we're pretty, it kind of works for us that way. Also, we could, and I heard Dwight kind of say this, right now we could put on just on apprentices and not just take them in, but also put them to work. Recruiting for us has been tremendous over the last 2 years. We've really been able to grow, and the attrition rate has gone way down. We're able to hold on to them and do some great things on this. But on the training side, on that, it's those older retirees that we're kind of, and not just the retirees, the guys that have their 20+ years experience, that we're really heavily leaning on those guys to come in and teach these young kids. On the pre-apprenticeship, that's also another cool one that we're really diving into at the schools with them. We got a joint membership right now with one of the Helena schools over there, where these kids are going to come in. The soft skills that they are going to be learning is math. And I think math could be out through the whole apprenticeship, plus the different things that are going to lead them in. Safety, things like that, first aid, CPRs, that can go across to many different aspects. That's kind of where we're leading at this and going with those. So, thank you.
So do I hear from everybody that we want to add a 5th action item, and that's something about this capacity, this training and, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Other feedback before we move on, I think we're a half an hour, this one, we got like 13 to go.
Jen, I just want to add, I think it would be helpful for us to effectively lay out the multiple paths to apprenticeship. I think the union path is one that we should spell out. I think the tech school to work is another. And I think how they align inside the 6 priority occupations or industries, what's there today, and how can we help build from there? You know, I've been working on trying to wire diagram ours, and it's possible, but it took some work. And I think there, you know, if we're going to want to grow apprenticeships, we need a better way for industry to connect to the model than we have today.
But Jen, can I throw out one too? Oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Just really briefly, I think on youth apprenticeships, that's another perhaps opportunities. I expect that there's lots of small districts whose superintendents would love this. And from what I understand, the barrier to registering youth apprenticeships is linking pretty clearly to an actual apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And so that seems like an area where we could facilitate conversation of actual registered apprenticeships.
Yeah.
What would you recognize? And then can we push that out through Digital Academy, University System, OPI, other categories, just to make those superintendents' lives a little easier?
Yeah, Jen, I'd like to put one more on here to make this relevant for our local government representatives, Commissioner Heinbaugh and the mayor of Colstrip that's with us. One of the opportunities to grow apprenticeship is in the workforces you employ too. I will tell you that one of the many things we do at the Department of Labor is we run the building codes and weights and measures team for the state of Montana. And if you've never tried to hire a building code inspector to go out and stand on a job site and go toe to toe with a general contractor that knows more than we do, it's not easy to recruit for, and we sure as heck don't pay enough. And we don't get the skill set. You know, I'd love to have a team of master plumbers and master electricians that just knew the code book inside and out. That's not reality for the $28 an hour we pay. And so we have fully implemented at the Department of Labor 7 pathways of registered apprenticeship to train our own inspectors and weights and measures operators. And this local government partnership, you know, every city, county, and municipality has a workforce too. And so this local government application could really help you too. And then I want to put a housing bullet on there, Jen, if we could, because we've got our partners here from Commerce and some others. We have a gap in this pathway to housing, right? We tell people that, you know, economic self-sufficiency starts with the day you sign your apprenticeship agreement, right? But also in Montana, it doesn't matter if you sign up with the laborers, which are some of the lower paid apprentices in Montana. The day you sign that laborer's contract at $25.61 an hour, you have just priced yourself out of every first-time homebuyer program in Montana that the Department of Commerce operates. And so with our legislative friends at the table, hear me, we'll be talking a lot more in the next year. We've got some ideas of how we can work with Commerce, work with you, the legislature, and bring forth in the next session a package of here's your apprenticeship and here's your pathway to a home when you complete it, which is going to take new thinking and probably a new partnership with Board of Investments or Commerce or someone, because we can't tell people, join an apprenticeship, it's your pathway to your future. Oh, by the way, you're no longer eligible for home ownership. We've got to find a better way for housing.
Yeah, go ahead. Just really fast, to step off Commissioner's point. You know, I love this conversation about building capacity, because you can't really pick a raw number of growth without understanding the capacity. But just, probably goes without saying, but thinking about Joe's world, some people that run two-year schools and OPI in the rural school, there's the challenge finding the instructor, just so there's a understanding in the capacity challenge. It's an economic one.
Yes.
You know, you've got to incentivize people to come out of a world where they're making 3 times what they're being asked to take that 70% pay cut. And if they're retired, you're asking them to go into really a full-time job at a 2-year or high, so get emergency certified. So you can get that done for welding or construction trades. But there's just an economic challenge in terms of building capacity, large scale.
But also, if we change the thinking of the retiring workforce that, hey, you know, because a lot of times, you know, the retirees I would always hear about when I was apprentice was they're just gonna retire and be over and done with. And I can also say that probably a good percentage, 20-25%, probably within a couple of years would pass away because they went home, sat and did nothing. So you get to your end of your retirement, a lot of these guys, they still want to be able to give something back, but if there was a pathway for them, you know, to go into an educational, you know, aspect of like that, it would give them that reason to do something different.
So it's sort of interesting what you guys are suggesting here, and to Adam's point as well of a career pathway. We always think of a career pathway as scaling up, but we don't actually scale it down as intentionally as we could, and yet the Montanans for Hire report shows that Montana has a very large number of retirees, people who just quit. And maybe it's because we didn't give them a nice way to sort of cruise into a lower impact work as they, you know, hit their mid-50s or early 60s. So interesting, and I think on target with what some of the data is showing are barriers. Yeah, Jason.
So yeah, that pathway has been one we've seen exceptionally effective. So like Galton College's program, we've always had somebody in the industry, they're teaching kind of as a swan song for their career. They enjoy it, the students enjoy it, and it provides that connectivity directly to industry. And I've made the pitch many times, and it's hard for people to say no and say, hey, isn't it time you give back? Isn't it time you give back? And there's a lot of people in this space. One challenge, it can't be full-time for a lot of these people. They're at the end of their career. They're financially ready to kind of kick back. They're not looking for a 40, 60-hour a week job. But if you can articulate, hey, this is 20 hours a week and you're doing something for the community, sure.
Well, and here's the other thing, you can platoon, because there's some people that, you know, it's like, hey, I'm gonna go snowboard, but I'll do it for snowbird. You know, I'll do the first part of it if you do the second part of it. You know, there's no reason why, you know, especially because what is there, 158 school districts in Montana?
Yeah, depending on.
So there's potentially 400 people that could be hired if each one of these school districts brought on a pre-apprenticeship program. And there's a lot of tradespeople out there that, because construction kills you. It breaks down your joints. You get to a certain point, I think a lot of people retire because you can't physically do the work anymore. And this would be a way for, you know, another pathway for someone to be able to continue to give back. And if there is people that, you know, I only want to do this for part-time work, I mean, there's enough people out there that you should be able to tune it, you know, and I'm gonna work the first part of the year and you'll work the second part, and vice versa.
So this applies to apprenticeships, but I remember there was a piece of legislation, I don't know if it was 2 sessions ago or not, that allowed industry professionals to come back and teach in the schools for OPI as well.
Paul was mentioning that emergency prevention.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to push us on here until tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about the credential registry. This was a directive, as you know, in the HB 252, the STARS Act, for the Department of Labor to create a credential registry. We're really looking at this for the 406 jobs plan as part of that zero barriers to work. We know industry partners want to engage with K-12 more meaningfully. And the direct language of the STARS Act is industry recognized credentials and work-based experiences. So the rulemaking for this is underway now. I think the rule is out and published. You can take a look. You can submit comments if you like. Your industry associations absolutely should. But Crystal is working diligently on putting together round 1 of the list of credentials. This is the chance for industry to step in and say, these are the things that we recognize at a national or a statewide level. These are things that the definition is going to be third party. It needs to be verified. It needs to be validated. It is something that's generally recognized by industry players, right? So this is your opportunity to say, from our sector, from our world, these are the credentials that we think are appropriate for high schoolers. Now, we're gonna talk here in a second about our career exploration tools, where we wanna have much larger registries of credentials that are appropriate for multiple age groups and multiple pathways. But this credential registry under the STARS Act is very specifically for high school. We want to begin loading up a easily accessible registry of things that can be taught online or in person. And schools will have to decide how they handle the in-person part of it. And we're gonna give those credentials a weight. And based on the number of students attaining those credentials, future ready payments flow to the schools to continue expanding career technical education programs throughout the school district. So we get in a feedback loop here of really driving people towards career pathways. Now, best practices will show that the more we can encourage students to concentrate in a particular one or two sectors, the better the employment outcomes are, right? If kids just go shopping for a bunch of random disconnected credentials, fine. And it might help them narrow down what they don't want to do, but it doesn't actually improve employability. We want to think about stackability. We want to think about micro credentials, things that get kind of momentum building in the direction of a particular career. So rulemaking is out. Crystal, the list is in development, right?
Yeah, there's a draft list published, but it's, there are some gaps still, and your input will be.
Yeah, I think heavy on the draft. And so please, this conversation is just starting. I think we're focusing in this first rulemaking, given the compressed time, on industry recognized credentials with work-based learning experiences to come later, but don't lose sight of that. That list has to be finalized and published by December 1st, and then we do it every year after that. At the same time, we've had these conversations, and we talked about it a little bit earlier today, about how do we do data tracking at the outset. And when we talk about our ETP, our eligible training provider list, and the data reporting in there, is it robust enough? Do we just want to know how many kids attain these credentials, what their wages were, or are there other things that we want to know? What did employers say about the value of these credentials? What did it do for retention in the workplace? So we need to think about what data we want to embed at the launch of our credential registry. We're gonna talk here in a second about the career awareness tool, but we want to integrate these things. It's back to that one, that single door entry. Let's find a way for people to access training programs, to access career pathway information, to understand what jobs are available in the state, to know what skills are required for particular occupations, to identify and designate our version of hot jobs. So integrating the credential registry into a broader career exploration tool is a priority. And then wanted to reflect and really highlight the great work of the university system on micro-credentials, year-to-career programs, the dual enrollment side of the credential registry that will come out of OG. Joe, do you want to hop in on any of that?
Yeah, I think two components on the dual enrollment side. So the payments that will flow to districts are a combination of industry credentials or post-secondary training. That can be through dual enrollment, that can be also through advanced placement or international baccalaureate. And so the work that we're doing, we have it really fairly clearly defined on the dual enrollment end, what can count towards this and how to weight those things. Advanced placement, international baccalaureate, we're aligning between our institutions' recognition of those course values so that that's clear. But I mean, it's exactly the challenge that Jennifer cited. We'd like people to have structured pathways that they're exploring if they're getting to 15 or 30 post-secondary credits. And the way this act is put together is that can be a mixture between college level training and industry credentials. So I think that there's lots of places like healthcare where saying, hey, these 9 credits will count towards every health-related career program in the university system. And you pair those with an EMT or a CMA or an industry credential that doesn't carry college credit. And now your district has additional funding to support those sustainably. And so I think one thing that this group can also advise on is, hey, what's that mixture of dual enrollment training where we have sustainable state funding, industry credentials, where districts have some ways to support some of those training. How do they mix together? Because that's what I think a lot of superintendents are going to be trying to figure out is, hey, how do we structure sensible pathways for our students while also achieving the thresholds that have caused the state funding to flow.
And I would say one thing, and this is exciting because schools are very good at doing what they're told to do. In 2001, No Child Left Behind came in and said, hey, we don't care if you have a great music program or a great shop program. We care that you know how to read and write and do math. So schools adapted to that. And we knew going into it, by doing that, we were gonna miss out on the things we're missing out on. So I think the opportunity for schools doing this moving forward is great. I was in Kalispell schools, what they're doing is outstanding. 80 miles west than Libby, theirs is a little different, but again, it's outstanding. It is connecting kids with that workforce. And you talk about soft skills, it's not because kids don't wanna work, it's because their lives are very scheduled as compared to ours. So learning those things in that work-based learning is gonna be different in Ritchie, Montana than it is in Kalispell, but it can be done in both places.
Right, and I think what's exciting for our industry partners about the credential registry is this is sort of a force multiplier. Right now, if you wanna offer an industry recognized credential, you're going one school at a time, right? And you're trying to build those relationships and hoping no one quits while you're getting the program started. But now we're gonna put it in a registry and school districts can grab it and pull it and build those pathways that make sense. We DLI will assign the relative weight of the credit, but it's the schools that make decision on what counts towards graduation, what that pathway looks like, how that gets incorporated. So it really is a whole system partnership and an opportunity for industry to lean in heavily and provide priorities, whether they apply to particular occupations or across an industry sector. Yeah.
One question I have from what we're doing with this foundation, and I think, let's say the private sector wants to come in with money to the school. Okay, to help with this, at what point do we affect the budget of what you guys cut at the state? Because we're funding from outside, or can we come in with no problem?
It's a different source of funding, so it would not have any impact.
It's clear.
It's beneficial to the schools.
Yeah, it's beneficial, right, yeah.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, the more, so if you have bookkeeping certificates or things that are industry standard that lead to a CPA, right? Let's get them in there and schools can say, listen, you guys who are interested in business, who are interested in accounting, these are the credentials you can take, and for every one of those you do, our school gets a payment next year.
So schools do something similar already. They have scholarship funds. It's that same, you know, separate bucket of money that they.
But we can't go and help teacher pay in order to get the teacher we need for that particular area, can we?
Oh, so the STARS Act does a lot of things, but they're two very different things. It invested $110 million in the teacher pay piece of this that you're talking about. But it also, in sections 14 and 15, directed OCHI and DLI to take on two pieces of this. OCHI's got the future ready piece of this, and then DLI got the industry recognized credential registry piece of this. We don't do anything with it other than adopt the list for everyone to find easily in ARM. And then it's up to schools to decide, do they want to implement their pathways resulting in those credentials? If so, they get the reward, which is the additional money the legislature appropriated on the back end to pay both the feeder middle school and the high school that produced that young person in that credential. That is separate from the starting teacher pay money. That this was a bit of a kitchen sink bill.
But if we brought in the trainer he's talking about, okay, the retired guy to teach, that can be funded by an outside source and brought into the school?
You know, then you're getting into union issues with the local teachers union. Some of them are stronger in some areas than others, and.
Cause that's one of the barriers you're gonna hit in those types of programs, cause that's what you're looking at, is you need to bring somebody that's technical, that's advanced to that next step.
There's a way to do it, I'm just not sure what it looks like.
They have to teach toward a credential, right? So we can't just teach a generic X class. It has to be, you know, this association says this is a credential that we value in our sector. And so if there's a teaching component, a classroom-based teaching component, it needs to be towards whatever that certification is. Does that make sense? And we do have many on the list that are just online classes, you know, Microsoft credentials or Oracle University type credentials. Yeah. Yeah.
On that certificate, just like, if you're gonna have a certificate class offered, certificate offered in a high school pro class setting, do the instructors need to follow the same accreditation standards of colleges, meaning that if you are going to teach the business classes, you can't have a master's in curriculum, you've got to have an MBA or master's in accountancy or.
Yeah, so Paul, there's standards at the university system level that say that, those high school instructors for class granting college credit have to have a master's degree plus a certain number of credits in the discipline that they're teaching. Or there are separate standards for CTE fields that are, levels that would be appropriate that they could be a college instructor in that field. At the same time, about a third of our dual enrollment offerings are taught by college instructors who have to have a Class 8 license to teach in, to have their class count towards the K-12 high school requirements.
Okay.
So yeah, there's kind of training requirements both directions, and those training requirements can be a barrier to districts being able to offer that curriculum.
There might be a little broader pathways than the strictness of higher ed in terms of specific master's requirements.
Yeah, and frankly, I'd say that Montana's requirements on that end are slightly lower than some other states. But it's not saying you have to have a specific master's in that discipline. You have to have graduate level credit in that discipline to teach that general education course.
Okay, that helps.
What would be helpful from this deal would be where you go to get those questions answered. If you're trying to put a program together, where's the resources that you could sit down and say, okay, here's what we're looking at doing. Tell us what we can and can't do. Tell us what hurdles we got, we'll figure our way over them. And stuff, because right now you don't know where the heck to go.
Good feedback.
It is good feedback, but let's just pivot our thinking here a little bit. What we're generally, not on the dual enrollment side, we'll leave that to OG, but on the industry recognized credential side, we're looking for things that exist already. Right, these are things that are coming out of your trade associations, things that are coming out of your profession, things that are already offered and existing. Now, that doesn't mean that, the Montana Contractors Association aren't going to, develop a program for X skill set. But that would then be recognized by all Montana contractors as a valid credential towards employment. So there is a component that will always be about building a program. But what we don't want to do is walk away with the thought that schools can create a credential. These are industry recognized credentials. These are employer offered, third party offered, employer recognized. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that. The big thing you got is what you have available in a AA school environment, where you have in a B and C school.
That's right. So online credentials are great. The more we can drive students to have accessible, online credentials that they can do. I don't know, Bo, if you're still on, but School District 2 has an opportunity school. It's like a small charter school where they just kind of have a tech block. They have a 2-hour period where they can do online courses or that sort of thing. And so some of those things make more sense for BC schools who don't have any capacity to add, but could give a student an hour a day to go work towards a credential. Commissioner, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's really good. I'm taking some good notes and sending out homework to myself.
He's so hate it when Swib has a meeting because everybody gets homework.
I'm a prolific Swib emailer. With that said, there's a couple of you that have shared programs you have just through our conversation today. Dwight, I'm gonna pick on you. You said you've got this packaged pre-apprenticeship ready to go for young people. Jim, you said the same thing and you said you have it in Helena. I just took a list at our draft list that's currently out for public comment right now for the first adoption of the STARS Act. And we don't have either of your pre-apprenticeship credentials on there. So our team's gonna be reaching out to you both. But what I could use from all of you is just put your thinking caps on. What are credentials that matter in your industry or your community or otherwise that we might not know about? There are thousands of credentials that young people in Montana have access to now, and we're trying to put them all in a list. And so if you think we've missed something, I would encourage you to read the list briefly. We'll send out an email after this meeting so that you can all see it. It's open for public comment for a few more weeks, and then we will adopt it in administrative rule December 1st. It's not one and done. I know we're gonna miss things this first time around. So we're gonna do a biannual rulemaking for a couple of reasons. We'll do this again in May to adopt an updated list again on June 1st. And then we also are subject to what we in government call the Mercer rule, which says in the 6 months before the legislature, you can't make any new rules. So joke's on them, I'm doing it in June. If they'll let me, we'll do this again in December next year. So we'll get 3 bites of this apple in the next 12 months, just to make sure we're collecting things. The way the money flows to schools is kids that started their high school careers this school year It's a 2-year look back. So anything that got attained this year or next year, at the end of the next school year, the district gets paid back for 2 years. So we want to capture it all. So we get lots of bites at this, but take a look at the list. We'll email it to you after today and tell us if we've missed something or if there's other folks we should be talking to make the list more robust.
And they really can vary in weights and values, that's okay, right? There will be some that are, you know, a technician certificate, and that's great. And there will be some that are gonna look like OSHA 10 or bloodborne pathogens, or, you know, micro credentials that stack in a direction. Those are all okay. The geniuses in Crystal department will figure out how to weight them. Okay, so I'm gonna move on, now to our, career information system, our career awareness modernization effort. Because this ties right into the credential registry, right? And we've talked about this in previous SWIP meetings. This one works across all 6 planks. This is where we really wanna make the state aware of all of the education, training opportunities, the data that supports it, the career pathways, the priority sectors. This is where it lives. So some of this work is underway. As you know, we've contracted with Credential Engine to do the credential registry. We have been working with our existing tech partner Deloitte to figure out some of this integration, some of the user experience, what this looks like. Our job board contract is expiring. We generally hear feedback that nobody likes MCS as it exists, and one of the big issues is there's too much behind the login rather than in front of the login. You heard Chris talk earlier. We have to do something with our ATPL list to make it more relevant and useful. And the hope is that all of these things come together in a single career awareness platform. You'll remember at previous meetings, we've looked at some examples of this. We looked at Indiana and Ohio and Idaho and Texas and Pennsylvania. We've seen how other states do this, where you essentially have a landing page, you do a search, and it's gonna take you to various occupational pages. And on that occupational page, you're gonna see what the job is, what the skills are, what the work environment's like, what it typically is. You're gonna see what you need, if it's on the job training, if it's entry level, if it's a credential, if it's a degree. You're going to see the career pathway over time. You're gonna see our labor market information that tells you how many jobs are projected. Is this a growth industry or not? What are the wages over time? What do we know? And then you're gonna see a list of everything that we have in the credential database that is our college programs, our industry recognized credentials, our work-based learning experiences, our high school program, everything that allows people to access. And then you're gonna see, again, this is in my world, you're gonna see all the jobs that are available in Montana right now. And if we really get lucky with funding, we build the Lightcast data into the back end so that we actually start crawling and gathering information. What we've heard from you all is try not to create new things, particularly do not create a new job board, crawl it. Go out there and aggregate it together. And so this integration of all of our career tools into a single tool that can be used by a high school guidance counselor, can be used by a voc rehab person, can be used by a probation officer, can be used by a person who has left the workforce to care for their children and now wants to find a way back. It is a system-wide career exploration and data tool. And that is what we are attempting to build. It will come out in iterations. We would love to back it with much more sort of robust data analysis to drive policymaking, to create a repository of workforce data and research for policymakers. But these are the sort of things, these action items you see up here are what we are contemplating. Can we do all of this in year one? I don't know. You all could push back on me if this seems too robust, but to some extent, we have a moment in time where our existing contracts are going away and we have some directives from the legislature, and we might just have enough momentum to launch a really sophisticated state-of-the-art tool that empowers Montana's workforce to access career opportunities.
I think our opportunity here is just like the credential registry, to piggyback on some really great work that's already started, right? When we had our RFP out to select a vendor for the credential registry, we looked very closely at what our friends at OG had already done, and they had already started investing into the same platform we ultimately purchased. So why reinvent the wheel and keep going? This is the next modernization for DLI, but it also builds on the shoulders of the awesome work that OG's done. They've gone to a single portal. They have a single application for their students. I hear from Commissioner Christian all the time about how if we could just tell parents and students to fill out their darn FAFSA, this would be easy. So where in this do we, if a young person identifies that, hey, this is a 2-year or 4-year college pathway, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. No, we punt them right to OG. Here's the application, here's the FAFSA, right? So leveraging what the state already has instead of creating new software systems. When I came into state government 5 years ago, I think the first conversation I had was with Joe's predecessor, who's now the president at MSU, and Tyler Trevor, about how much we all universally hated MCIS. And let me tell you why. Because everything you want to do on it, as a mom at the kitchen table, requires that your school district get your student a login. You can't do anything at home without your school district saying so. And by the time you coordinate that communication to get your kid to bring the password home, it's just not happening. I know this from experience with both my kids trying to get in that system. And then secondly, I'm the commissioner, so I have a password. And I have done their career exploration inventory on myself multiple times. And if you know me, you know I'm not creative. I don't like drawing. I don't like any of that. I am very right brain. But every single time I take it, no matter how I try to trick the system, it tells me to be a cartoonist. AI has gotten rid of cartoonists, but it is my recommended career path every single time out of this damn thing.
Have you tried it?
But I've lost some stuff. Recommending careers that don't exist anymore in fits that aren't good. And so what can we do? That's step one. And like Jen said, I hate tech debt. I hate separate systems and separate logins and expecting moms and dads around kitchen tables to know what government door to knock on to be like, what's my login for this one again? We've got to streamline it without reinventing what OT's already done and what OPI's already done. How do we connect them?
We want to put the maximum amount of information for career exploration and awareness in front of the login. But that said, there will be some things behind the login. This will be a chance for people to track, ideally over time, they will track the credentials and the certificates. They will have their record, they will have a resume. If we really can bridge some gaps here, we will have AI tools that say, listen, you are one credential away from all of these jobs. Are you sure you don't want to try this credential, right? We start giving up some value add analysis. We also want to create some interface for employers. So yes, we want employers to be using this tool and thinking about how they're recruiting and marketing their occupations, how we're showing a day in the life of occupations so that people are interested in these careers. But also we know that employers need to connect to file paperwork for the work opportunity tax credit and some of those other things. So can we on the back end create a single point of entry for people that makes sense, that works? We also want to connect this. We want to actually have some warm handoffs. So can we connect this where you can click a button and say, have somebody at job service or have someone at Voc Rehab or have somebody in the system contact me because I want to go in the next step in actual career counseling. So we don't just want to park them online and then forget about them, but we want to create some warm handoffs too. Those are not listed here as year one because that's going to take some time to build towards that. But what do you see is missing? Or what should come off?
This is beautiful.
I say go for
This
it.
is awesome, absolutely awesome.
It could be fun, right?
This came about, half of it came about.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it could be transformation.
The next question comes to, what do we do with it? But that comes after how we pay for it, right? So legislators will be talking. We also have a number of private sector grant applications out to get ourselves some seed money and some things. These things take money and then will start working on them right away. The other piece of this is how do we tie it in, right? Shanda, I know your agency is spearheading across the enterprise, the referral engine. So how do we kick referrals back and forth, right? So how do what we need from you as state agency partners, right? You too, what systems do you have that we can be tying into on the back end and either referring back and forth or what landing page of yours needs to be included, that sort of thing. We need your help from state agencies. I'm about as deep as a cabinet meeting goes, but I don't know your systems. So we need you to help us archive that.
Think you wanna continually test how you get into the system with people that don't know anything about it to make sure it works, because when you got the programmers with their logic, that's the way it's done, but if you don't know the terminology, like half that stuff, if we don't know what those three are.
Yeah, I've sat through both the back end side of it, the front end side of it, and one of those meetings went dramatically better than the other.
I think the thing to remember with MCIS is better is absolutely possible. This was a state-of-the-art platform when Montana invested in 1983. Now it's been through some facelifts and some things, but we can do better. And I'm really glad to see this as a recommendation, because I got.
So what direction do you need from us to go forward?
So A, do we think this is a priority? Because it's a huge lift. And B, can we count on you to help us?
Yes.
Because those industry pathways, those things we cannot build out in isolation. And this is really the chance to lean into the part of 406. So we don't just wanna show, here is your, apprenticeship to career pathway, or here is your college to career. We wanna show, here's how you do this as an apprentice, or here's how you do this at college. And by the way, if at some point in your career you wanna veer into entrepreneurship, here are some resources. If you actually wanna go into the medical field through military, here, we're gonna connect you. Like, we gotta lean into the language of this, but we need your on-the-ground expertise in all of your sectors to build that.
So this is a monumental task to put together.
No kidding.
Are there certain career paths we're gonna pick first, flesh out, and demonstrate how it works?
Yeah, we're gonna start in our
Six.
six, yeah, absolutely, and so, and I think. We know where some of the specific occupations are that are high priority in those sectors, but we'll want your input there too. And it is a huge lift, I mean, this is a full team effort, this is a full system effort.
One more question in that. Once we have it, there's gonna have to be an ongoing maintenance of the credentials of the system, what's current.
Yeah.
I assume we're planning for that in the funding, because that's one of the challenges with tools like this. You roll it out and it's great. And it's a little less great, and then after 40 years, nobody's using it.
Or they swear a lot when they do.
And I think this will free up some resources truly for our schools. Craig, maybe you can help us gather some information on this. But I know anecdotally, especially our big school districts, they've just walked away from the school. Bo Brunsma, who's on Zoom with us, representing Billings Public Schools, they purchased a platform called Zello that I think they spend $73,000 multiple times throughout the year to make available to their school districts. What can we do, if we were to scale a tool that works, that people want to use? What can schools do to repurpose those dollars into actual opportunities for you instead of technology that we can scale?
And we create system efficiency, right? What if you're working with a client population, you're not inherently a workforce expert. We want to give you the tool that lets you do that without having to become that competency, right? So we want to create this sort of force multiplier tool that allows us to reach into small districts that can't afford career counselors in the way the Big 8 can, or into, social service programs that are trying to get people into work but are not themselves workforce experts. Let's mobilize the system to have information right at their fingertips that is actionable.
Yeah, that's one area that I think would be a good discussion is there's a lot of audiences that this system is seeking to serve. And I think one of the challenges, I think besets MCIS, is it's so much information behind the login because it's trying to serve all of those audiences' very specific needs. And so how we understand in the process of either building or requesting this system, like what caused SD2 to jump to this other tool? Or what, of the other tools that districts have in use for the K-12 career exploration set, what are their highest priority use cases and functionality? And how do we distinguish between these different populations as we're trying to build a system that will probably on the back end, we have a lot of the same DNA, but might need to look a little bit different on the front.
Yeah, I think that's right. We know we have a lot of ONET data that we will use as foundation, but we want to make that rich with Montana specific information, so.
A huge priority to David's point, this even does half of what you're planning. It creates this massive incentive for industry to come to the table in a big way, which is the driver of.
That's right, that's exactly right. And this is a big lift, but other states have done it. They're not better than we are. We can do this, and we can take everything that we've seen in their systems that are insufficient and go to the next level. So this is our chance really to position Montana at the forefront of workforce.
We do have an opportunity where we could schedule some demos and things at a work session of SWIB if you'd like. We could do it probably virtually. There's a number of states, Texas, Alabama, you heard from Indiana, or some Indiana examples today from Chris. There's some states that are out ahead of us, that we'd be happy to get some demos and things and show you some system functionality. At the end of the day, our legal obligation as a department and this board is to have a job board tool available. I don't sing the high praises of what we've got, but it checks the federal box. And when that contract expires, we must have something to replace it with. We think we can do better. Yeah.
Do we plan to go out to the districts to teach them how to use it? The counselors are there in the small districts because, when I was in high school, a long time ago, the catalogs to go to college were sitting there in a box and the counselor's office never opened the box.
Yeah, we have
Unless
to
you
scale
force
that.
them
So we have a team of 9 career development specialists that used to be OPI employees that the budget director in the legislature sent our way a couple years ago. They are responsible for school relationships. They can certainly help. OPI has a number of CTE pathway staff that are engaging directly with schools every day. OG has those dual credit advisors that are engaging with schools. I think it's gonna be in all of the above. If there's a tool, we'll have to partner. We can work with the education associations to do training at their training seminars and things, but it'll be all of the above. Things like this don't come with staff to just drive around and train.
And my hope is that what we have to drive mostly is awareness, but that the tool itself is intuitive to the user.
Yeah.
Because we want this, to work for folks who are sitting at home in a dead-end job, they don't wanna change careers, right? So we want it to be as user-friendly as possible, but driving the awareness, hey, go here, I think is gonna be a big lift.
But some of them are gonna have trouble just with the log. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's where you.
That's why we put as much as we can in
You
front of the
gotta,
law.
you gotta get it to where they get past that stage.
You're right. Okay,
Joe mentioned, voice of the customer is how I always used to phrase that, get a perspective of an audience and what do they need. Have we identified all of the audiences that we intend to serve with this tool? Is there a short list of those? And then have we created pathways, portals or something? This is more of a maybe a breakout of when we have the data. How do we present the data so it subsets or self-selects quickly and easily?
we have created, I think 14 journey maps.
Perfect.
Of different avatars and how they would navigate and what they would need. I think we're actively using 7. And we might add a couple of more. So they're gonna build the templates around those, and it's all sorts of things, right? It's the kid at home, it's someone who wants to work but is facing a chronic illness or disability, someone transitioning from civilian service with behavioral health issues, like we have people who we are talking about their needs, their wants, and their journey through the system. And so we will build some mock-ups on those by the end of November. Is that the timeline? And then we can share that with you. Okay, officer reentry, we talked about that a little bit, but I do recommend this be in our year 1 work plan because the legislature told us it needs to be in our year 1 work plan. So we're gonna do that. We need to hire our director, we've done that. We need to begin the stakeholder engagement, and then we understand that DPHHS is working on a reentry initiative specifically focused on some of the wraparound supports that help people to be more successful as they're exiting incarceration. So this is absolutely a statewide policy priority under the Zero Barriers to Work. But we also know this is gonna play out in our local sector-based partnerships as they develop local on-the-ground coalitions who will work with Robin to address local reentry supports where there are significant criminal justice footprints. Is there anything that you all see missing here that should be a year 1 action item? This is standing up a new office, right? We need to hire people, we need to start the conversations, we need to get the foundational work done. Critically important work, but I think not a lot of action items here, it's just a lot of work to get everybody on the same page.
You could convince me, Jen, that we should have a asterisk kind of pointing back to our apprenticeship commissions.
Yeah.
That we should work very diligently with the Department of Corrections in this first year to align all their 80-some pre-apprenticeships with registered apprenticeship. I know some of that work's underway, but I think that could be a meaningful win for those that are still incarcerated during this first planning year.
Okay, that, we can absolutely add that. Anything else?
Is there apprenticeship programs inside the institutions for those people getting out so that they can continue on then?
Yes, and under development now, they're little A apprenticeship
Okay.
programs, but we're working with them and I think we can close that gap quickly.
Okay, next recommended, again, this is in the governor's executive order. I'm gonna defer to Joe and maybe Craig to talk a lot more about this. But the governor is very intent on leapfrogging Montana to the front of states who are embracing AI and automation as part of our workforce strategies. The data out of our Data and Economics Bureau shows that Montana's risk for AI and automation comparatively low from other states. Are we 36th, I think is the number we had in the Labor Day report, with about 21% of our jobs subject to elimination through AI or automation tools. So for the state of Montana, artificial intelligence and automation is an opportunity. It's a chance to open doors. It is less of a, how do we protect our incumbent industries, which is what many states are dealing with, and much more of how do we lean into this future? How do we upskill the incumbent workforce How do we prepare young people to enter into jobs that exist now and jobs in the future? How are we incorporating AI and automation tools to help our small businesses be more effective? Montana is still one of the best places to open a small business. We want them to continue being successful by embracing and adopting technology early. So there are a number of action items that are set out in the governor's executive order, and there are things that are happening already. OPI released today their guidance document on teacher professional development, ethics in the classroom, how they want to see teachers begin thinking about this. We know there's incredible work going on at the Montana Digital Academy. Joe, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, glad to, or Craig could as well. The Digital Academy has been very involved in that guidance for teachers. Digital Academy received a state appropriation to stand up a Frontier Learning Lab, and that is meant to be a statewide K-12 resource for teachers, for districts on AI and augmented virtual reality training. If you haven't met Jason Knifer and his team, they're incredible. They reoriented a lot of their workflows over the past 2 years to think about how do we incorporate AI well into our operation, and have some really cool demonstrations of how that's worked for them. And I think really are at the forefront of, can we license tools centrally to make sure that they're well vetted for districts and affordable? Can we provide teacher PD? Can we do some of this work also on curriculum around AI, VR, new ways that curriculum can be delivered in remote places using some of those tools? And they've been very helpful with some of our university system efforts around task forces, thinking about similar questions of, how do we need to change what we teach? How do we need to change who we hire? Do we need to change our operations in the university system?
Yeah, and thank you to getting that in front of the regents already as a priority. Thank you to OPI for jumping out and engaging teachers. Everyone's asking these questions. So having our partners pick up this piece and run with it is really important. We know we have work to do with commerce to begin thinking about how we reach out to small businesses and do some of that education and training. And what's exciting is after the governor's executive order was issued, all sorts of people started calling the commissioner saying, hey, we think we can come in and help you. We see major initiatives from major technology companies partnering with states to do really interesting things in AI and automation. And those requests are coming in the door as well. So figuring out how we build a technology partner who can really help us do something transformational. We've heard a lot about this at pretty much every conference we've been at in the workforce space in a long time. Whether that means, creating jobs that don't exist right now, making it easier for people who face barriers to work to get to work, all those. We have an opportunity to bring on some technology partnerships that are exciting. And then lastly, there's good conversations going inside the state organism as to how we embrace this across the enterprise. I think there's a conversation, Commissioner, that maybe you could shed some light on creating AI communities of practice across state agencies, or maybe bringing on a chief AI officer. Really, our general approach for a while had been, let's kind of step back and hold off on this. And now I think we're seeing momentum in the other direction.
Yeah, I think a couple exciting things are being developed. I see just today, the OPI and Superintendent Hedlund issued that guidance in a press release to the state, so that's available for districts and teachers to look at today. And then the Department of Administration, so one of our cabinet agencies, is in the process of hiring a chief AI officer to serve state government right now. And as part of that, our state chief information officer, Kevin Gilbertson, together with this chief AI officer, will be establishing a community of practice for AI in Montana. They're working with both of our flagship universities in Missoula and Bozeman, our friends at Ochi, as well as cabinet level staff, right? Again, working more broadly. What does a community of practice look like, and how can we work with each other? And then how can we start building this out into our employer and job seeker network? What does AI readiness look like? What are the skills? What are the best practices? Rather than every agency trying to kind of play whack-a-mole here and learn this, we're going to do it in a pretty organized fashion through a community of practice. So lots of opportunity. But Craig, I'd love to learn more about what OPI announced today. I see we got a press release.
Well, I know we've been working with the Montana Digital Academy, and if you don't know what that is, it has been around for 15 years, maybe longer.
Boy, I should know the answer to that.
But it's been around. So what they did initially is they went into school, offered classes in schools digitally that you couldn't get. So in Conrad, Montana, we could not get Latin class, but we had kids that could take Latin, and they've expanded, and their work with the AI is really good. Here's what I'll tell you. I read a book about 2 years ago on AI and education. A great book. Already by then, that book was published in 2019, whatever. It is 3 years behind where we're at.
Yeah.
And so it is a fast evolving thing. So it's gonna take continual learning, continual changes. And just to provide some guidance for our teachers and kids in schools is a start.
Yeah.
But looking around the region, what Montana Digital Academy has done is really ahead of other areas, other states, so.
Yeah,
At
it's,
least in our region.
I'd say dramatically ahead. And I mean, part of it, both higher ed and K-12 is you have a lot of educators who are busy folks themselves. And they need a permission structure to go and use these tools.
Yeah.
And to understand how to safely and ethically incorporate them in their classrooms because their students need to know how to use these tools. And then you have the follow-on question of, now you have a bunch of administrators trying to figure out how to source and pay for the software so that their students have access so they can learn how to use these tools. And I think they have a really good strategy on each of those fronts for how to help the state. And those are the same conversations we're having with some of our institutions. And I think this group's conversation part is, how's it changing your industry and how does that affect how we need to train?
yeah. And I think we have a lot of different lenses to look at AI, right? Yes, there's a training piece, but there's also for existing workers, how do we help them to be more efficient? How do we take away the things that drive burnout, the things that create inefficiencies? If we have chronic job shortages, are there some that we're willing to let go to automation and AI and move people into higher paying, more durable jobs over time? So there's really meaningful industry-based conversations to have here. At first blush, for year one, do you see that we've missed anything on this action item list? Jen, I really want to hear from you if you think there are things we need to be doing to leading into AI and automation to create opportunities for folks with chronic illness or disability.
I don't know. right now.
Yeah.
I can't speak to it.
I think
Like,
I-
there's so, it's like overwhelming and there's so much ethical conversations and
Who's
things
that?
going on right
Yeah.
now that like I can't speak articulately to anything because there's so much being talked about and researched, so.
Okay.
Nothing particular has come.
I've been to like 12,000 conferences this summer. And every single one of them, this is a topic that is discussed, and I think they came to the same conclusion. We cannot ignore it, we have to dive into it, but how? So I know, statewide policy wise, it's huge, and nationally too.
There are some people working on AI solutions for like job coaching, because job coaching capacity can be limited. They're not paid much, it's hard to hire, right? That has its own workforce issues. So I know there's some AI work being done around that activity. That being said, all the personal information involved, right? So I don't know, I've not heard of any great solution yet, but a lot of thoughts around how to serve this community in the workplace differently.
I think
But, yeah.
What I'm gonna say is I'm not negative. We're running headlong into this as a company. The challenge that we have is data protection. Is how the AIs work is if you put data in, then that gets used for everybody else. So you can find your data in other people's solutions. So we have this firewall data and then use the AI to only look in the box of what we put in it. But I think that's the point is that there is a training component that, with whether it's, HIPAA or FERPA or what you put out there, if you put out things that are an easy answer, everybody that uses ChatGPT is gonna use your person.
Yeah.
So there might be a training element that.
Well, and I also think there's two comments. One is for public institutions and schools, there's a procurement element of, hey, can we set up systems that don't have that flaw? Then people can feel more confident in using. And then second, for small businesses, like you think about Cyber Montana and cybersecurity support for small businesses and the training of that pipeline. Well, this changes everything that those folks need to know. And the cybersecurity risks are dramatically higher than they used to be. And so what does that state support look like?
Keep in mind, we're navigating this very complicated, sophisticated question while we're still extending broadband into most of Montana. Like, we are at a crossroads that is very weird, but exciting, right? That's where we have richness. That's where we have some real opportunity.
It was hard not to think about, most of the teachers are using the surplus free equipment.
Right, I mean, I think someone's still got an AOL like dial-up CD that they're putting in to get internet. So we are in a really unique position to do some interesting conversations that a lot of states can't.
But this is a prime example of the NCIS discussion.
Yes.
A chatbot where you talk to the person that's just populating the screen with information, would be so much.
Yeah, can we have, if we're going to do career exploration or career aptitude analyses, what if it's AI enabled? What if it learns with you as you're talking about your skills and interests, right? Can we do something more interesting? Yeah.
One thing that blew my mind here recently, my son-in-law's a banker, small manufacturer, he was concerned about what their security was in providing a labor force. The guy said, I'm buying GoBots. I didn't know what a GoBot was. Okay, the robot you work with, you can get hurt. A GoBot can work alongside humans, not hurt anybody. And you know what a GoBot costs? $30,000.
Wow.
That's less than it costs to train an employee. It doesn't have to have vacation, sick leave, it shows up on time.
Yeah, if you go to the Billings Airport, you can sit almost anywhere in the airport and a robot will deliver your food to you right away, you know, I mean, and maybe that's okay. Maybe we lose those jobs and move people into some of the other chronic labor gaps that we have across the state.
But that's why we gotta teach these high school kids,
Yeah.
because they're not gonna be entry level stuff. And as you raise that entry level wage, as minimum wage, you make more GoBots happen.
Yeah, you're right.
Just for clarification, it's a cobot.
GoBot, okay.
Okay, anything that you all think we're missing here, things that are happening in industry where we're not catching it? What things you wanna focus on in year one or recommend up that we focus on in year one? This is an area where the governor's executive order is pretty directive, so again, a great opportunity to read it and think about how it applies where you are in the state. Okay, so the heart of these 6 high demand sectors is this concept of local sector-based partnerships. Montana has some history in doing sector-based partnerships. We did them in healthcare in 2017, 2018. We learned some things. One of the lessons learned that I've heard, I wasn't doing this at the time, but that I've heard is the more local, the better. So the sector-based framework that we will be using is the US Department of Labor's updated sector strategies framework. It is designed to be employer-driven, locally led, focused on specific occupational talent pipelines and what it takes to close those labor gaps. So we talk about health careers. In this community, that might mean a med tech. In this community, it might mean a psych tech. In this community, it might mean a dental hygienist, right? So those, we have these high demand sectors, but we're gonna rely on the locals to define what the specific occupations are. Be in partnership with education and training providers, job service, voc rehab, all the wraparound service providers, all the career experts, and say, how do we address this in this community? Is it a K-12 program? Is it reaching out to the NUS to develop a credential or a micro credential or a sprint degree or something like that? Is it a talent attraction effort? Is it some of all of those? But these are gonna be locally driven. We'd encourage their development in each of the 6 sectors, but every community will say they matter differently, and we're hearing that. As we do the roadshow, we ask them what sectors are mattering most, and we're seeing the disparity around the state. The Department of Labor's economics team is publishing individual sector-based reports for each one of these 6 sectors that will dive deeper into the data that is behind it. Where are we oversupplied? Where are we undersupplied? What are wage projections? What are job projections? What training programs exist? What apprenticeships exist? Where are the gaps? The first one that will come out is in the construction trades, and then we will release them periodically in every single one of these to inform the local based conversation. We would like all of these sector partnerships to be supported by an intermediary, a person who is functionally a facilitator. In many states with more money, they call these local workforce boards, but we don't have this, we have SWIFT. And we need the local boots on the ground infrastructure, but it needs to be supported by a facilitator. Someone who is a, economic development association, a chamber of commerce, maybe even a community college, who is just the convener. And who is the kind of organizer. But to be clear, the governor has been very direct with us. You see it in the executive order, you see it in his language. This is to be industry led. So this is not a place where industry comes to the table as a community service partner and offers some ideas and then walks away for someone else to do it. We want to dial in on those things where industry say in each of the 6 sectors, look, we have been recruiting employees and we are not successful enough. So we are going to pool our resources into something new. So industry funds lead, state funds, to the extent they exist, follow. We want industry partners saying, these are the things that matter, these are the things we're willing to invest in, these are the high priority things. So really important that we all use the language of skin in the game. We want you to come to the table, not just as a thought partner, but as the implementer. So the intermediary is a facilitator, not an implementer or an executor. We want to see the things that employers want to do, and then we want to, at the local level, the education training providers and supportive services are there to help it happen. And then we want those intermediaries to be able to facilitate up to SWIB when they run into a barrier on the ground that they can't solve, right? And then we become that statewide policy board, bringing together the impetus to tear down the barrier that they are encountering locally. That's the framework that we're gonna try to roll out this year. How does that land? We've talked about this a fair bit, so unless you're new to SWIB, this should be a little bit familiar. Now, as we do the roadshow, we're seeing, as I mentioned, some of those priorities come up that we're just really gonna kind of feed into our local sector partnerships and say, this is what we're hearing. We're hearing transportation's a problem. We're not gonna solve that at a statewide level. We're not putting in a statewide subway system. You need to solve that in your community, right? How are we getting people to work? What are we doing on childcare, housing? We might solve some housing and childcare at the state level, but there's also gonna be local strategies, right? How do we address this attitude toward work locally? So we wanna feed some of this feedback into our sector-based partnerships as we stand them up. We really wanna train and support those intermediaries and then let locals go to work and implement this in each of our 6 sectors. Heartburn, questions, concerns, pushback, things that we're missing in this area?
Is the intermediary a state employee?
No, very specifically not a state employee, because the state employees, whether they're in job service or voc rehab or corrections or wherever, they are subject matter experts. They're there to contribute that. The intermediary will want someone to be a little more meaningful.
So they put the sector strategy group is expected to pay the intermediary.
Well, that's an open question. Stay tuned. I'm very persuasive with the commissioner. We're gonna see what I can convince her.
It's her bucket.
Largely, and I will continue to pick them as much as we can. Anything else on these sector-based partnerships? Okay, so this is, I think, is our primary way of addressing the high demand sectors. We will obviously highlight them and focus on their pathway development in the career awareness tool. And we want to make sure that in all 6 sectors, we're looking at all 4 pathways to work. Are we encouraging in all 6 of these sectors, career, college, entrepreneurship, military, and service pathways? Okay, childcare. This is one very important to the governor. I don't know what much to say here, other than the state has established a trust fund and there is an entrepreneurship ecosystem working here. I don't recommend this as a huge priority for year 1, but I also don't think we can credibly put out a strategy that doesn't at least talk about what's already in place to help it.
I also think with childcare and housing, because of the trust, that we need to be very aware of what is being implemented.
We have a childcare pre-apprenticeship program and a childcare apprenticeship program, so we need to make sure that that's valued within our overall apprenticeship strategy. I think there's some credential opportunities here, so there are definitely things that we can do. But I think much of this work is in place already, and we want to make sure everybody knows it and participates in it, particularly as the trust fund starts to develop.
The other thing is that it even happened with the mental health fund that we set up. All of a sudden, they're stuck, like what now? How do we go forward? And I think that's where continuing to have these conversations, and even Sarah and I were meeting the other night, that there are these other opportunities. How do we keep providing these pathways and bringing them together as we discover them, so it just doesn't stop. So it's just like, okay, we're all done, because there are opportunities there.
Sarah?
The other thing that I would add to this is, I think we do need to, especially with childcare, analyze the public-private partnership. Because right now there are initiatives in the state where public pre-K is one, where a lot of the school districts are getting funding that is going directly to them to offer these full day pre-K programs, which is causing childcare providers to shift more towards a 0 to 3 age group. which is.
It's not financially
It's
sustainable.
not financially sustainable, and it's driving the price of childcare through the roof. The money needs to follow the child. So parents have choice and they get to choose, which program works best for them. Because right now we're we're seeing profit margins tank, we're seeing providers close their doors. And there's still a need for childcare, but families simply can't afford it. And part of that is because the money is going solely in one direction. It's not necessarily we don't have a good public-private partnership.
That's helpful. I think we can add that as a reasonable bullet, doing some data analysis. Anything else here? There has been a push, I think, from many people to put out business models that can be easily adapted. I do think that's important. I do think that's something we can do. I just would not recommend it as year one. We have a lot that is legislatively directed. I think that's something we should aspire to in a future year. But for this year, I think this is what is manageable.
Yeah.
Okay. Disability empowerment. So, this is one where please hop in. I know we have talked a little bit in the State Rehabilitation Council, Chanda, about the competitive integrated employment opportunities. We've talked about expanding access to apprenticeships. Are there other things? Because I will tell you that when you look at the Montanans for Hire report, largest sector of the 100,000 is people who have stayed home to care for a family member, right? The next is people with chronic illness or disability. So it is a huge portion of the population that has just left the workforce. And I think for many of them, building a bridge back should be a priority. So if industry's working on things, if you have ideas, things that we've missed here, please say so. Okay.
I mean, it wraps up into everything else.
It does.
I mean, it's, yeah.
We should do it across the board, right? We need to think about this into how we integrate all of our career tools. But I do not want to ignore the significant population of people who are not able to access work. And that should be a priority because it's right there. Okay. And so then I think we're in the home stretch here, so hang with me. A lot of work happening in system leadership and alignment. Again, this falls under our zero barriers to work. Out of the last state legislative session, as you know, we do a WIO estate plan every year. OPI and OT wonderfully sit at the table of that, and we have now mirrored that on the development of the Perkins plan. So Tammy and a member of organized labor now sit on the state Perkins plan committee. And I think our goal is to start driving towards unity in those two plans so that we are aligning our WIOA dollars and our Perkins dollars into a comprehensive state plan for those federal funding dollars, however they manifest over the next couple of years. HR 1 included the short-term Pell or workforce Pell. We have some alignment conversations that are underway. How do we think about those dollars and what's eligible and what's defined, and the credential registry and these things, and how do we ensure that we're supporting our funding streams and our policy priorities together. The executive order directs a new level of interagency collaboration on workforce, and that is going to begin being implemented next week when they have their first cabinet meeting to talk about what everybody's working on. The executive order directs that every agency have a liaison for SWIP, so that we're able to talk and communicate and know what workforce programs are happening. So we talked a little bit about the fact there's a massive and ongoing training effort for broadband installers. The Department of Commerce has finally blessedly gotten released the $700 million grant for grid modernization, and that has a huge workforce component. DPHHS has a $50 million rural health transformation grant. I said it on the webinar and everybody just said workforce, workforce, workforce. There is, as you may have heard, a state mental hospital under consideration that needs about 500 new employees. There's gonna need to be a multi-agency collaboration wherever that lands too. So there's some big workforce things happening across state agencies. And the executive order directs that be much more integrated. And then one of the things I'm most excited about is we have had a great partnership with the Department of Administration to lean into the idea of skills-based hiring across state agencies. Commissioner Swanson has done that at DLI. It is the approach that we took for both the Office of Reentry and the permanent WSD administrators. So we started this work and we're hearing great feedback from the Department of Administration and making that an enterprise-wide priority. They've begun to analyze which positions are suitable for that, and their mindset is generally, we're gonna assume it is, unless somebody proves to us it isn't. So you will start to see some capacity building across state agencies to think differently about how we hire and recruit, which allows us then to share that with private sector partners who may say, we don't quite know how this works. We have a big workforce, a lot of ability to test things, see what works, and then share into the private sector, this is what we've learned from the process. Did you wanna add anything to that? Okay, so from your all's perspective, as a year one priority, are there other systems things, how the state agencies work together that you would wanna see as a priority on this list? Don't let fatigue stop you from telling me I'm wrong. Dig deep, go ahead, Jason.
Not to throw a challenge out, but one of the things I've seen is business attraction. Workforce is always a part of the equation when trying to bring a new entity, new company to Montana. And historically, it's been different groups doing different things, not a cohesive response from the state. Here's what we have to offer, here's what it is. I would love to see that group help drive that conversation. So it's a cohesive MUS, OCHI, across the board, OPI, saying, here's how we can beat company ABC and help them stand up in Lewistown, Montana.
Yeah, we're trying to improve that a little bit, and the piece of that I'll share with you is the authorizing statutes in Montana code for this entity, for SWIB. Direct this entity to work directly with business attraction and commerce. Now, could that be better? Yes, with Tony's help at Commerce and new Director Bertolio, I would say it's getting better. But right now, it's short windows of time to prep. I would hope that we could get better to include more and more appropriate members of this with board, whether that's OCHI and OPI. If it's photonics and quantum, it should be you. If it's manufacturing, it should be Patty. We're not getting a lot of lead time yet, but it is getting markedly better. I see Tony just popped up. I don't know if he has anything to say, but the red carpet attraction team at Commerce is a good partner, and I think we're all working to improve that communication.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, had to find the mute button. Thank you, Commissioner Swanson. Yes, we tried to get better all the time, especially with our red carpet program. And I'm listening to your feedback, and where possible, we will definitely better include the SWIB board moving forward. So I'll definitely pass that along to our business attraction team and Director Bertolio.
The one addition I might have, Jennifer, is, the third rail of big state plans that the federal government has us do on related to workforce is SNAP TAMP. Just something
Are you
to keep up
volunteering
the
to get to the
conversation.
spear on that? Is that
I'm happy we didn't want to.
You're right, you're 100% right. It is an area where we're encouraged to include coordinated planning, and we're not there today, but we should continue to aspire to it. For year one, we owe it in Perkins might be enough. So my laptop has died, that's why I'm not projecting anymore, sorry. But I do want to highlight the last two things that are on the list that hopefully you all have in front of you, and one of them sort of dovetails with this idea of business attraction, and that's really telling our workforce story, right? We want Montanans to see their future of work here in the state. We want them to know what it looks like, even when the career they're thinking about doesn't exist in their own backyard or at their own kitchen table. So we've started some things in that. Some of you have seen the Workforce Warrior poster series that shows examples of what it looks like to be in very rural communities and tribal communities, go right into the workforce and have very lucrative careers. To own your own business, to chart your own pathway. We want people to see identity in opportunity. We talked a lot about a platform like Discovery Education to help tell that story of what it looks like to have jobs in Montana that you might not have known existed. We still want to explore ways to do that and to create that very visual, this is a visual generation, we want to create that visual sense of what it looks like to work in Montana. And then we continue to hear on the roadshow and around the state that there is some support needed for talent attraction campaigns. We don't quite know what that looks like yet, but particularly around certain major initiatives. There might need to be a talent attraction piece as well, and what would it look like to partner state and locally to highlight some careers, to highlight some reasons to be in a particular one of our 6 high demand sectors. So that is a pretty nascent conversation. Some of the storytelling is a little more sophisticated. The idea of some talent attraction and really showing to the world why Montana is a great place to live and work, I think is a little early stage, but something that some of the other major workforce initiatives might drive us to consider sooner rather than later. So it is included here. Thoughts or feedback on that? Things that are missing under how we tell our story about work in Montana?
I'll share that I pushed really hard to put talent attraction on here. Because when we look at the core of 406 jobs and what brought us here through the research we started with, we know we've got these 35,000 vacancies in those 6 industries starting to plague us every year, starting in 2026, right? We can't fill it. And we are not gonna turn the corner fast enough to train enough people with the skills and credentials in those 6 industries starting next year. And we know, the number we keep throwing out is we need 35,000 workers in those fields every year for 10 consecutive years. So in order to bend that curve, we need to think about a competitive talent attraction campaign in those key hard to fill industries, right? If we get a new state mental hospital, that's 500 employees. There is not a single community in the state that has those workers today. And it will take us, even through short-term credentialing with and some others, a year to get there. We need those workers sooner. And so what are the targeted places where we partner for talent attraction? We also run professional occupational licensing at the Department of Labor. Nearly 200,000 Montanans, that's about 35% of our full-time workforce, count on us for one of 200 different types of licenses every day. I will tell you that the trend has shifted. 60% of every license application through our door is from somebody moving to Montana from out of state. What if we focused that on the industries that we need more diligently? And so I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to pay for it. I have more questions than answers.
Yeah.
But I feel very strongly that strategic talent attraction needs to be part of the work of this WIB. Where are the biggest gaps and how do we both bring in workers and train workers, right? As we're talking about those trainer gaps, can we fill that with some talent attraction to have the trainers to train our own folks? What does it look like?
I mean, statewide, we're talking 11,000 jobs a year that we're just leaving unfilled, right? Take out everybody who graduates high school, everybody who graduates college and stays here and goes to work. That's 24,000 people every year. There are still 11,000 jobs every year. Some of them, we'd love to bring people back into the workforce. Some of them are going to have to be new people in the workforce. And so I think it's right to have it included in there, even if we're not exactly sure how that goes. The last 2 very quickly,
To that point, I think also maintaining and retaining that, because we're talking about these people with chronic illnesses, they're taking the risk, doing all of this stuff. We've got to make sure we take care of them to stay, right? And
Yes.
that looks different. a
I
lot of times.
totally agree.
So just. Because everybody's investing a lot. The industry is, and we want to make sure they stay there.
It's why things like the recovery friendly workplace matters, right? It's why if we think about a reentry population, how do we have people who are there sort of as a SWAT team if there's a workplace crisis to kind of help problem solve with the employer? Like, I think all of those supports make a lot of sense. Okay, before I lose your attention completely, because you still have a few decisions to make, the last 2 bullets on there, you've heard it and we will continue to hear it. We need to expand the number of sites offering jobs for Montana graduate programs. It is absolutely a priority for the governor. It's a priority for the commissioner. We are seeing incredible alignment happening with the Chamber of Commerce Foundation's Empower curriculum. That is that entrepreneurship side of 406 jobs. They are, it's my understanding, crosswalking the 2 curricula right now so that schools can better understand how to implement them as a package, both employability skills and entrepreneurship skills into the school district system. So expanding those sites, creating that crosswalk, that's going to be a priority. But interested to see if you think there's other things that we need to be doing other than just constantly chronically recruiting sites. And then lastly, because it is one of the 4 pathways to work, we need to start having some conversations about better coordination of veteran services program. We need to have conversations about better recruitment into military. We see school districts all around the state starting to bring back junior ROTC programs. We know that there is great workforce training available to folks who enlist. And so we just have some work to do coordinating, I think, DVOP programs. Certainly in Billings and other communities, we've seen real upheaval in veterans programs and how they're being funded both federally and even in the private sector. building some partnerships. We just need some conversations to begin about the military pathway. They haven't been front and center, and I think this is our opportunity to highlight them as something that needs to happen. Feedback on those two pieces?
One really quick.
Yeah,
point.
please.
So on the chamber piece, the Empower, one of the things that they found is growing the numbers is one thing. But they're building additional support and support those teachers, otherwise it's just, you know, a mile wide and inch deep. So I can't speak to JMG, but if you hit that critical mass where you need more support, that might be a component.
Does that look like educator training, professional
Yeah, so
development, or is it materials?
What the chamber's doing, actually hiring staff that can go around and support those individual teachers in different regions of the state to make sure that, you know, they remain focused and have their questions answered.
And that's an opportunity again for partnership, right? We have the staff to do that on JMG, and we can.
Yeah, eight of them, I believe, right, Crystal, regionally, 8 JMG teams?
We need to fill, I think we only have 4 now.
Okay.
And then the outreach role.
Okay.
Okay, so we can add in some like system support.
Yeah, just
As a action item, that's reasonable.
support her. Yeah.
What else? Are there any major topics you believe we've neglected here in this year one recommendation? Okay, so then we have 2 questions for you to wrestle with. The first is, we will take all this feedback today, get this into a actual document, which we need to have your approval on before it goes to the governor. Can you all be available for an online Zoom meeting on the 6th of November? I'm seeing some ick faces. No. Okay, why? Is that everybody's holiday? Like what? Why does everybody hate that day?
I'm traveling.
Okay. All day? Man, you're a tough boss, man.
I'm not a victim until the 8th.
Until the 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's a weekend, right?
First through the 8th, I have no technology out of the country. Good for you. So you don't have to have me there. I can designate somebody to vote for.
I'm good, this Senator Nolan.
I'm traveling.
Okay, give me an alternate date.
What's the due date?
The 11th.
Yeah.
Oh. 7?
The 10th?
Or the 7th, yeah.
I'm screwed if I can. 8 to 10
How much?
and.
How much time?
You will have the report in advance.
Okay.
Now, we might be doing graphic design in parallel, but that's okay. You will have the substance well in advance. I mean, we've got your feedback here. It won't take long to incorporate. I cannot have it to you before Halloween because we won't have the road show done. So incorporating all of that feedback pushes me to the end of October.
So I guess my question is, how comfortable are you all with the framework? If we're gonna come to this meeting on the 10th and have lots of discussion and changes, that's gonna be monumental to move before we deliver to the governor on the 11th.
I mean, you all have seen the example in your packet, so you know what it's gonna look like. It's a program description, the action items we talked to today. The only thing that should sound very new is some metrics and outcomes.
I'd say it's a formality, honestly.
It should hopefully be a short meeting, but I don't wanna have it go to the governor without your eyes on it.
No.
But if you get it out to us, first comment before that meeting is formality.
We can have some conversation, you're right.
And Joe, I think you said was 7, but you mean.
November 11th, yeah. Did I say December?
Until December 6th.
Oh, yeah, sorry, November 6th is when I was hoping we could meet. But it sounds like that's not a good day.
I knew what you.
Thanks. So did I hear in favor of the 10th?
It's a month.
Yeah,
So you can have me by the 11th, no problem.
yeah.
So this is.
That would be my hope, that we will have it to you as soon after the roadshow concludes as possible, then you'll have time to send questions in advance, you know, yell if I missed something, and then we should be able to just come, make sure that we're all in agreement on the desired outcomes and metrics, that we haven't missed any metric that would drive our decision making here as to whether or not, right, we're trying to measure, are we succeeding or not? So ideally, we would. Again, it may just be a text document, it may be in graphic design still until the 10th, but you should have it, as soon as possible after the roadshow concludes on the 30th. So the 10th? Morning? Yep. Okay, we'll send out the meeting invite. And then the next conversation, I'm sorry, did you want to move us to the next agenda item?
I was hoping you would, because I don't know.
Okay, the next agenda item is committees. We are almost at a fully, we have a couple of slots open on SWIB, but most of our new appointments are here. Welcome, so excited to have you. We now need to reorganize our committees. We've talked about this for a while, that we've had some standing committees that are helpful, but they're not really aligned with 406 jobs. We have had a conversation about standing committees versus project-based committees. We have not resolved it. I need your feedback. Tammy needs your feedback as to how you guys want to work in between our quarterly meetings, your quarterly meetings. Do you want standing committees or do you want project-based committees?
I think there are some entities that it would be appropriate to have standing committees, like the WEO.
Sort of a systems committee.
Right.
Right, because we talked about that, like if we're going to have these zero barriers to work, do we have what is functionally a systems committee, an employer committee, and an employee committee? Does that make sense under those statewide policy-making buckets?
Can you repeat those again?
Yeah, so under the zero barriers to work, we have 3 buckets.
Oh, yeah,
remember?
okay. Yep.
Employees, prepared employees, employers, and systems. So we could do those 3. We could put WEO, Perkins, and all of that kind of stuff. We could put some of the K-12 things in the employers. We could do the skill building, the digital literacy, all of that, and employees. Like, we know what those things are. So we could organize it that way. Or if we say, listen, there are some of us, like David, who are keyed up about this project, about the career awareness project, and some of us who are dialed in on reentry, and some of us who are committed to military. So we're gonna do some project-based initiatives. Tell us that. How do you want to work in between quarterly meetings?
I think it's imperative that we have functioning committees that work in between meetings. I mean, for years, what the governor signed is fantastic. As I read it, it just got more and more exciting. This is what we've been looking for so long, and now we have it. So throughout that executive order, the SWIB becomes the responsible party. So it really is incumbent, I think, on us to get work done in between meetings.
So would it be appropriate to have Tammy develop the 3 areas that we just talked about and put committees underneath that? Have a definition of what those committees are, because there are people in the room here that don't know what those committees are. And come back to our next meeting in regards to have it sent out earlier so people can start chewing on it and deciding what committee they want to be on. I don't think today is the day to make that decision at 4:05.
Just in fairness, y'all have been telling me that since April. So one of these
I know
days,
that.
we're gonna have to tell people we need one.
Well, we need to put it earlier in the agenda.
You're right, it does always end up as the last thing
Yes,
of
it
the day. That's fair, that's a fair feedback.
The last piece I'll add to it is I hope you're seeing this shift in the department as a result of your work on the SWIB and your recommendations to us to how to engage differently. And so I really don't want to wait until January or February to get some of this work started, not all of it. But we have over 200 employees in the Workforce Service Division and arguably 50 or 60 over in our Employment Standards Division, whose work is evolving and changing because of your recommendations for how the system should serve them. And so I'm happy to keep flying blind, but if you want to be engaged in helping us to evolve this agency, sooner than later is helpful too, because we really are reimagining the entire output of the Workforce Service Division to implement 406 jobs. So 406 jobs is not just an extra initiative on the side, it is our work now. Thanks to all of you.
So is this something where we bring the current executive committee together and they make they kind of make that decision?
And we could, we have not had an executive committee meeting waiting for you guys to decide how you want to reconstitute committees, but we certainly could do that in between so that we don't wait until January to have this again. Am I hearing, I assume the assumption is yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead.
Can you send out the committee information and then just get our feedback?
Of course. Yes.
The executive committee.
Yes, and is it still your all's preference to serve on one committee?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
I will do whatever's helpful, but if the executive committee makes that decision, I'm fine with what looks best going forward, what's most practical, what's most efficient, what serves us best as a body.
That's what you all have to tell us, because we do need your engagement. I mean, you are in fact a sounding board for the work happening in multiple agencies. They need to be able to go to you and say, hey, is this copacetic? It's not, again, it's not direct service work that we're asking you to do, but we do need that advisory role across this work.
And I appreciate that, I just don't wanna make a decision.
Yeah.
No,
That I've heard that.
yeah, I know, on a regular daily basis, but actually though, I'm not, I mean, with what we've got going forward, what. If the executive board could say, this is what would be best for this body, I think I would be, cause I'm okay with whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I was just saying, not to throw out a really popular idea, but if we're getting together on the 11th of November, 10th, and 11th of the 10th, for an hour, do we throw another hour on there and knock this thing out so that, I mean, if we're all together anyway, that would be
Maybe
a little more
done in less
expeditious
than an
than-
hour.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, if the executive committee has kind of the framework of the committees, we bless the committees.
Yeah,
and-
people can sign up. for it.
We can send in our preference, but wherever the executive board thinks
Yeah.
it would fit better, then they can make that decision.
I hear you. That's fine.
Heather's fine with making executive decisions, so you said.
Sure. Please do that.
Okay, and then, as we transition from my leadership to new leadership, when I came on board a year and a half ago, the challenge that you all gave me, that the commissioner gave me, was to make this committee relevant, and I think we've really done that. It's been very exciting, but we can't lose it. So we made the decision when I came on to move to 3 in-person meetings and 1 virtual meeting. You previously had been 2 and 2. We made the decision to move around the state rather than not just be in Helena. Just wanna do a gut check. After some time doing that, is it working? Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was trying to catch the fly that was.
Oh. Okay, so we wanna continue in this vein, meeting in person when we can,
Yes.
virtual in the winter, given weather conditions. We survived a legislative session.
Big sky in winter?
What is the legislature allocating to us? for
Yeah.
that?
Sleep in a tent.
I think we survived the legislative session without too much collapse with great workforce initiatives.
That's not true. It
We've
was
got-
horrible.
We've got an executive order, and so if you all are comfortable with us continuing 3 in person, 1 virtual, we will do that. We will be to the executive committee with a recommendation, and we'll try to get the committee placements finalized on the 10th, and this report to the governor on the 11th. I will be in and out of these meetings, but you are in Tammy's very capable hands. So I think we're done. I guess you would need to ask for public comment.
I would open up for public comment. Is there anyone online or in the room that would like to provide a public comment? Okay, I am going to say something though. I do have chair closing comments and I get to be chair, I think. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. The amount of work that we've done in the last year is quite amazing. And so I'd like to welcome all the new members. Get ready to pull up your sleeves and get going because we work hard in this committee or in this board. So congratulations and a job well done. We're not done with the work, but we've done a really good job up to this point. I also want to thank DLI, Commissioner Swanson and the team. The last legislative session was remarkable in the amount of work that got done, and a lot of it was on behalf of us. And so I just want to say thank you. And I want to thank Jennifer. The amount of work that's been done on 406 jobs and the statewide tour and all of that, including DLI, it really is amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to welcome Tammy. We do look forward to working with you, but we want to thank Jennifer about it.
It's been a blast and we have a lot more work to do.
Yes, we do. Okay, I will ask for someone to make a motion to adjourn.
Real quick,
Oh,
so
yeah.
for some of us that are new,
Yeah.
can we get some of this background information? Because.
We promise we will have it right. But it's a great reminder that if you are new and don't know this, you are entitled to honorarium and travel expenses. We will send those forms out by email. Please make sure to get them back as soon as possible so we can get those checks to you. When you make room reservations to go to SWIP meetings, please do them at the state rate. If you are staying here tonight, and I hope that you all are, we will see you tomorrow at the Montanans for Work Roadshow. You can see the roadshow live and in action. Having your engagement there will be wonderful. That is also a work day eligible for honorarium and travel expenses.
So for Aaron, for Dwayne, for Dwight and Eric, I got to sit by Eric all day and write down all of his questions. So I've got a long list of homework for things that I think we'll spend some time with Tammy calling and onboarding you all with. But by all means, as you've got questions, we threw a lot of just assumptions of data at you today. Here's how we got here. Just ask the questions. Tammy's your conduit and we are nothing if not well supplied with data and reports. So we will help not only give them to you, but walk you through those.
Then tomorrow morning, where does that start at?
Same that time, same that time, right here.
Okay.
9 a.m. Well, registration at 8:30, yeah, registration.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
What's winning lottery numbers for this?
Is there a motion for an adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Favor say aye. Aye. Okay, opposed. Hey, safe travels, everyone. I don't know the numbers, sorry.
Well, whenever someone asks that.